to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because, you know, this is a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Past 6. Who doesn't love a Saturday morning? Your weekend starts here. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. And breaking this morning, Sir Keir Starmer launches his most brutal attack on Nigel Farage to date, saying that Reform UK will, and I quote, divide the world and lead potentially to war. But will these attacks thwart Reform's political revolution? Meanwhile, a massive political story today. Arch Nigel Farage critic Rupert Lowe launches a new national party with a plan to field candidates the length and breadth of the country. You heard me right, Rupert Lowe to launch a new national party, potentially with financial support from the world's richest man, Elon Musk. So is that good or bad news for the country? Could a divided right hand Labour another 5 years in power? Your thoughts. My number is 03444991000. Has Rupert Lowe done the right thing to launch a national political party? Or is it time to unite the right? You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. I will prioritise your messages this morning, or leave us a voice note. Just call up the number 03444991000, leave your message, and we'll put it on the national radio and television airwaves. Because I'm delighted if you're listening on DAB+, in-app and online, because the very DNA of the Talk brand is radio. But let me tell you that this is a television network as well. And if you want to watch the show and see my big name guests and watch Dolan's Dispatch and see everything that's happening in our central London studio, all you've got to do is head over to YouTube, search the word talk. Just put the word talk into the search box of YouTube, hit the live button, and up we pop. Meanwhile, this morning, left-wing terror group Palestine Action win a landmark case in the High Court, which exonerates their actions, including targeted attacks on military sites. So is this yet another example of two-tier Britain? And the Prime Minister says the true bit out loud as he declares that Britain's Brexit days are over. So are we about to witness a great betrayal of the biggest mandate in the history of UK democracy? What do you think about Brexit? Surely we've had that conversation. But I could ask you at 5 minutes past 6 in the morning, would we be better out than in? I'm so happy we're out. What are your latest thoughts on Brexit? How do you feel about Starmer salami slicing our decision to leave? So much to get through. You are listening to the Home of Common Sense. It is Talk Breakfast. Your weekend starts here. A big 4 hours to come. We're doing a very special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Producer Dean has unearthed a wild story, folks. This is wild. A do-gooder left-wing Green Party candidate is taking her grandchildren to meet illegal immigrants and give them, wait for it, Valentine's cards. Undocumented men, some of whom may have terror links. What does Granny do? Woke Granny takes the grandkids off to a disused military site to hang out with 500 undocumented men and give them a specially hand-painted, these are children, little boys and little girls, hand-painted Valentine's cards. I don't love that on Valentine's Day. What I do love is your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Tommy's on the phones. Davis is directing our television output. Let me tell you, he's the best in the business. And Engineer Dave is off today. Do you know what he's doing? He's actually having plastic surgery. I won't go into details because it's very private, but he's having a bum lift and a tummy tuck. I've seen pictures. He's already a dead ringer for Sharon Osbourne. Engineer Dave's away today. We miss him. I'm not sure what he's doing. He might have taken the missus away for a romantic, at a Holiday Inn Express. Spare me the gory details. I actually don't want to know what Dave's doing with his missus on Valentine's Day. But talk about replacing Ronaldo with Harry Kane, because Luke is pressing the buttons, which means the show will be seamless today, and in charge of it all, our glorious leader. Tommy's on the phones, Dean Spencer. And that is your Vorsprung Dork technique. That's your guarantee of quality. So much to get through. 8 minutes past 6, as the saying goes. Let's talk. Well, happy Valentine's Day, one and all. And let me tell you that I love your opinions. That's why I'm here. That is what this is. I am nothing more, folks, than a conduit. I'm a canal. I'm a vessel through which your opinions pass. That sounds a bit medical, doesn't it? But that's what I want to do. So what do you think about Rupert Lowe launching a brand new political party? There are people, Dean Spencer, that say that Rupert Lowe is a disgrace. Is it? I don't think he is, because he's an honourable and wise and intelligent man. I don't think he's a disgrace, but is it a mistake? Are the right divided? Does it hand the keys to Labour for another 5 years? What do you think? How do you fix that? Should they all come together? Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, Kemi Badenoch? What do we think about this? What is the problem with the right? It's quite clear that this country is in the iron grip of socialism. Don't give me any of this soft left of the Labour Party. They are hard left. The proof of which is the highest taxes since the Second World War. Inflation rampant, almost double the Bank of England's target rates. The cost of borrowing higher than it was after Liz Truss's budget. We have socialism. We've got wokery in our public institutions. So what the country needs is some sensible right-wing policies, which is an economy where we live within ourselves. A lot of policies which bring inflation down because it's a tax on everyone, including investment. And what we need is firm borders, policing on the streets, common sense policies within our public institutions. Are we going to get that if Rupert Lowe's got a political party? If Ben Habib's got a political party? Lawrence Fox has got a political party? Kemi Badenoch's got a political party? I can't remember what it... Would you look it up, Dean? Kemi Badenoch's, which right-wing parties can Conservationists? What, oh, the Tories. I remember them. You'll have to Google it, kids. That's one for the teenagers. Nigel Farage has got his own political party. Habib, Fox, Curtin's got one, isn't he? What's that very nice man? What's his name? Curtin has got a political party as well. You'll correct me. Tell me on the text. What's his name? Curtin, political broadcaster and campaigner. So all of these people are on the right. They've all got parties. Do you remember David Curtin? Really nice guy, actually. Talks a lot of sense. But the bottom line is that they're cancelling each other out, aren't they? All these parties of the right. Surely we are united in our view that this Labour government must go at the next election. Is that goal achieved by having a whole bunch of parties on the political right where the participants mostly think the same things? What is the difference between Kemi Badenoch fundamentally and Nigel Farage? If Kemi Badenoch was just a rather feisty Tory backbencher, let's say that she was at a different stage in her political career, she wasn't in the shadow cabinet. Let's imagine that she was in the 2019 intake, Red Wall or something. Kemi Badenoch would have defected to Reform UK by now. Because she's a Conservative. I know she's not perfect and she took a long time to get started, but she's on the right. So are the right dividing themselves, and does it hand Labour 5 years of power? 0344 499 1000. The switchboard is filling up on this. Feelings are strong. Now, I don't want to condemn Rupert Lowe for about 100 reasons. Have you got time? First of all, I've known Rupert Lowe for a long, long time. Since the very beginning of my journey into political current affairs. From the moment he entered politics, the political space and then Parliament, he's been a guest on my various shows. He's really consistent ideologically. He's incredibly bright. He's lived a life. He's an entrepreneur. He's a wealth creator, an employer, an investor in this country. This guy has put more in than he's taken out, and then some. He is the mother of all net contributors to our economy and to our national wealth. He's a farmer, so understands real toil and getting your hands dirty and dealing with the seasons. He is, of course, a former football club owner as well. It was Southampton FC that he was the chairman of, did great things at that club. And now a strong political voice in the House of Commons. This is a guy that has crowdfunded his own very critically important rape gang inquiry. He's a force for good. He's a remarkable man. What a life. It's a crying shame that he was ousted from Reform UK. I think it was handbags at dawn. Again, Farage and Lowe are ideologically aligned. Why are they working against each other? So I'm a big fan of Rupert Lowe, and I will not condemn him on a personal note. And this party is going to have some great ideas, and it will be an attractive prospect. But what's the point in having a fantastic Rupert Lowe party as well as a fantastic Reform UK if they cancel each other out, they split the vote in those marginal constituencies and hand some blue-haired, nose ring-wearing Labour MP, or be very afraid, Green Party MP into the House of Commons? What is that? It's an empty victory. And it's what the left used to do, and it's what they did under Corbyn, and it's what they did under Michael Foot in the 1980s. You must unite to win. I didn't like Blair, but that's what he did with the left, is he brought them together, created a coalition. Are you telling me that those Labour backbenchers in the New Labour years liked their leader or agreed with most of his policies? No. They were lefties. And old Blair renounced socialism. Now, he did lots of bad things, the Iraq War, and he opened the borders and changed the constitutional framework of the country so that we couldn't deport foreign criminals. These are all egregious crimes. But he was basically a right-wing man, and he held the party together with sticky tape and glue, based around a centre-ground offer to the voter. And that is what the right have to do. The right need the equivalent of Blair to unite them. It was Thatcher in the 80s. She represented the Tory wets, all these posh aristocrats with their rather sort of philanthropic instincts, alongside your, tough working class Tories like Norman Tebbit, who are further to the right of Attila the Hun. She represented that party, your Geoffrey Howes, your Michael Heseltines and your Norman Tebbits. She brought them together and led gloriously for 10 years. Blair held together his coalition. That's what politics is. It's coalitions. There is no party that ever won power that was not a broad church. A narrow ideological interest group will never win power. So what's Rupert doing? What's he up to? What's his game? Because surely the only beneficiary is, hello, Sir Keir Starmer, hop, 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 hop. Surely Starmer is the only beneficiary of Reform UK and Nigel Farage and Restore Britain and Rupert Lowe at war with each other. The other problem I've got with all these parties is they all begin with the letter R, and I can't ever remember what they're called. There's like Reform, Restore, Reclaim, Heritage. It's a hot mess of political brands. So should the right unite? Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm very, very keen, because I think a whole bunch of you will be so excited that Rupert Lowe is going to have this strong voice and actually, field some troops and actually, have a political move which shifts the dial of the direction of the country. How about this from Eugenie in East Sussex? He says, Mark, it'll remain just a prospect party. So she's not too happy about this. How about this? Rupert Lowe, says Tony, talks sense all the time. Ben Habib talks sense. Nigel Farage is the man who allowed right thinking to flourish. Forget the Tories, too many Lib Dems. The proper right need to work together. Surely their hatred for the left is greater than their minor political differences. We cannot have more of this leftist drivel. I want to come home. See, Tony is the acid test, isn't he, at 17 minutes past 6 on a Saturday morning. Tony is the acid test. He's a tax exile in Milan, and we haven't saved the country until Tony feels it's safe to come back, that he can have property without being burgled or mugged, that he can walk down the street with a posh watch and not be pursued by a hooded thug on an e-bike. We won't have saved this country until Tony feels that he can invest in this country, that he can employ people without being clobbered by the tax man. Julie in Yorkshire, this is interesting, Dean. Take a listen to this. I'm really disappointed with Rupert Lowe. This is the worst decision and will divide the right vote and keep the loony left in to destroy the UK. He has just lost my respect. I'm praying he will rethink this and put the country first. Wants a rethink. I'll tell you something. OK, well, let's go for this for the last one, finally. Good morning, Mark, says Ben. Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib are two good men, and I agree with many of their views. However, I believe in Nigel Farage and his views more. Rupert and Ben, that's Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib, should join Farage, otherwise they will let that liar Starmer back in for another 5 years. Will Rupert and Ben allow that to happen? The question is, are they for the country or themselves? Yikes! It is 6:18. Tomorrow's front pages this morning in 2 minutes' time.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening, the noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, folks, it is 6:21. Rupert Lowe has launched a brand new political party. He will field candidates the length and breadth of the country at the next election. Is a divided right going to hand Labour 5 more years of power? Let's take a voice note. Luke, who have we got first up? Brilliant. We got Sean. Sean, take it away.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby. There's only one man fit enough to lead our country at the moment. That is Rupert Lowe. However, on the next election, I'm going to vote Reform because the candidate round here is a decent fella. I've met him a few times. And sometimes you have to hold your nose, right, and do the right thing for the country. As Kennedy said, we don't do these things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard. And if Labour get in again, then we've got nobody else to blame but ourselves. Anyway, Mark, great show. Got to go. Got to pay for my next door neighbour's benefit money. Great show, mate.
Sean said it all. I've got to go to work because I've got to pay for my next door neighbour's benefit money. And that is why there's going to be change. That is why a political revolution is coming. Sean, thank you for that. Sean is very concerned that the ultimate consequence of the right being divided, fighting like rats in a sack, is handing Starmer 5 more years. Luke, have we got another one? OK, we got Anne's voice note. Take it away, Anne.
Good morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. What I think about Granny taking those poor little children to see criminals, illegals. If my mother or mother-in-law were pimping my children out to illegals to virtue signal to the world about just how great she is, she would not be welcome in my house anymore. I don't think that woman should be around any child in this country or anyone vulnerable. Thank you.
Well, Anna, thank you for that voice note. If you're just joining us at 26 minutes past 6 on a Saturday morning, a Green Party councillor is taking her grandchildren, little boys, little girls, to a army training centre which is going to accommodate 500 undocumented men and give them Valentine's cards. It's inappropriate. I suspect it's illegal. Those kids should be in care. I would have those kids taken off their family. If Granny is in charge and is taking them to meet potential criminals, the world's gone completely mad. That is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. You won't want to miss it. Let's have a look at the front pages. And Davis, if we can start with the Daily Mail, Mandelson's ghost flights on oligarch jet. Peter Mandelson took ghost flights on a Russian oligarch's private jet to a summit with Vladimir Putin when he was EU Trade Commissioner. The now disgraced peer accepted luxury flights aboard a Gulfstream jet controlled by one of the Kremlin strongman's favourite tycoons, aluminium billionaire Oleg Deripaska. The EU subsequently slashed aluminium tariffs to the delight of Mr. Deripaska, who became one of the world's 10 richest men. Also great news for the UK in the Olympics. Weston's super win. Matt grabs Olympic gold. I think that was in the skeleton, which I've done. And let me tell you, the most terrifying experience of my life. You're basically going head first down a very icy track at around 80 miles an hour with your hands down the side of your body. Welcome to hell. Daily Express, recognise our heroes who put lives on the line is the other story. And William's call for Andrew to leave before the rot set in is quite interesting. It's my understanding that Prince William is spitting with rage about the behaviour of his uncle Andrew and called for him to be banished from the royal family in 2019. The Sun newspaper, Gordon Ramsay exclusive. Don't forget where you came from, Brooklyn. Star's plea to end Beck's rift. Family friend Gordon Ramsay is acting as a peacemaker in the bitter falling out between Brooklyn Beckham and his parents, David and Victoria. We'll get to more front pages in just a moment, but I'm itching to introduce you to my studio guest, one of the country's finest comedians and political broadcaster, Steve N. Allen. Good morning, Steve-O.
Morning. I only turn up for the intro. That's all I like. I just need it. My ego needs a bit of that.
Well, listen, I tell you, every word is true. Rupert Lowe has launched a brand new party of the right, and it's called Restore Britain. He's an intelligent guy. He's got many fans out there, including many watching to and listening to this show. But would a divided right hand 5 more years of power to Labour?
Yep. I mean, we've already got a divided right, and this is dividing the divided right. So mathematically, this is what the left has done for ages. Like, historically in this country, it's been true to say that the right fights the left and the left fights itself. It's this purity politics of, oh, you're not left enough, you're centre-right, which is effectively a Tory. Sorry, centre-left, which is effectively a Tory. There's parts of the left that will hate you for not being full-on right up to the brink of, like, oh, are you sure this communism thing's bad? If you're not one of those, then you're effectively a Tory.
And it's about ideological purity, isn't it?
And there's no way to win an election because of our system specifically. It's not a good way to win things anyway. What a stupid way to have an argument. If you're not as pure as me, you shouldn't be allowed to speak, is the point of view of some of the left. But when you've got a first past the post system, annoyingly, that normal distribution kicks in, that Gaussian curve, my friend. It's all about that. You need a chunk of that middle, don't you? And the right have been focused on winning elections. What a great thing to do if you are in an election. As Corbyn said, we lost the election, but we won the argument. Oh, well done. It's a shame you weren't just doing an argument then, because you were taking part in an election, you fool.
Yeah.
But this is messing it up. Now, there is a chance that what this might do is move the right's slice of the Overton window and discuss the issues that people want to see discussed, because that seems to be the main schism between reform and reclaim. Also, let's talk about that, because not reclaim, reform, reuse, restore. There's a lot of these. Recycle.
Repurpose.
Yeah, there's a lot of those going on. It does get confusing. And as much as that's the joke, that's part of what's getting on here. There's a mushiness to what's happening on the right now. Which party is saying which about what? And that's not going to help.
Most definitely. Well, it's when egos get in the way. And as you said, the left did it for decades. It happened under Michael Foot. It's possibly happening again for this new incumbent Labour government, where you're seeing the soft left, and then you've got the Corbynites, and then you've got the so-called blue Labour. And that's maybe why it's difficult for Sir Keir Starmer to govern. But successful administrations, at least electorally, the ones that have won multiple elections back-to-back, have been a broad coalition. Yeah. That would be the Thatcher years, where she accommodated the Tory-wets, those philanthropic aristocrats, alongside the incredibly right-wing sort of working-class tranche of the party, the Tebbitites.
Yep.
And similarly, New Labour was a coalition too. And it wasn't even a happy coalition, but it was held together with a single message from Tony Blair, which is, you're better off in power than not.
Which is so true. They should have that as a tattoo, because they forget that, don't they? The idea of being, especially now with social media, being able to signal that virtue of, look how pure my politics are, and thereby throwing away an election. There's no point looking really good but having no power to do anything. Even with power to do things, Starmer's finding out that it's not particularly possible to do some of the things if your backbenchers don't agree. And back in the Blair years, I mean, it was barely a Labour government, really. It was just kind of, people were sick of the Tories, so they just rebranded a different Tories. And I'm not saying that as a slight. I think it's just an observation of where you were, the broad church, where you'd put the markers of the broad church politically. It was so far overlapping people in that chunk of centre-right.
Definitely.
That then, and that's the way to win. So look, I don't think Rupert Lowe's doing that. And I think this is going to cause a mathematical problem. You only need to worry about that in an election, though. And I think at this stage, moving where the discussion is can be useful. Although I was looking on their website and it lists the problems, no solutions. But maybe I'm being harsh because they've only just launched the darn thing.
Well, for those that don't know, can you tell us about The Life of Brian and why some of the characters from that film might be invoked when it comes to what's happening on the right.
People's Front of Judea.
Yeah.
They've got nothing in common with the...
So for
Judea
those that haven't seen the movie, why is this such an iconic scene and why is it so pertinent at the moment?
Well, it just shows that people would rather squabble with people with whom they effectively agree, other than on such a slice, and then they form such a hatred, such a visceral hatred, that they think the worst kind of person is the one who almost, like, Venn diagram-wise, overlaps. And that is probably what's happening here, isn't it?
Well, that's right. So John Cleese he sat there in this amphitheatre in ancient Rome, and you've got he's at war with someone else sitting next to him because he represents the People's Front of Judea, and then his rival represents the Judean People's Front.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was a satire on the left at that time.
Yes.
And now the right are doing it. They're doing it in America, where you see sort of Ben Shapiro in disagreement with Tucker Carlson over Israel. You've got Candace Owens, who's at war with almost everyone else on the right. It's not a happy. They're not happy campers.
But do you think in the old days that was because for some reason the left were obsessed with this ideology? Who could be the purist? Whereas now the right also stirs in a little bit of the environment that we're in. Like, if you want to make headlines, if you want to be successful on social media, you have to do something that seems emotionally led, the old, the lizard part of the brain. And that will lead you to finding the areas you disagree on rather than the areas of commonality, which is not good for elections, but is good for having a row politically. We're kind of to blame as well by the media landscape would rather see two people thoroughly refuse to see the other person's point of view and shout for a 5-minute bit, which goes great on the internet, whereas actually the world needs people who can say, I see what you say, but here's why I disagree with you.
Christina says, good morning, Mark. Rupert Lowe is a sad, bitter man, along with Ben Habib. Keir Starmer is desperate. All he's doing is telling the world he's running scared. Vote Reform UK. Starmer is a traitor. We need our independent. Brexit is we need our independence. Brexit is our lifeline. Thank you for that, Christina. Let's have a look. We've got so many messages coming in. Let me make sure and stay on top of these. Mark, I'm going to throw a hand grenade into this conversation, says Nick. Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, two politicians for whom I used to have the utmost respect, have shown that they're no different to the others. Ultimately, their egos dictate their actions. And as neither man will ever be remotely adversely affected financially by a continuation of Starmer's socialist junta, they care not a jot about splitting the vote. Anyone who really wants change needs to ignore these two narcissists. Vicky in Bournemouth. Good morning, Mark. Rupert has formed his own party alongside Nigel, and it's sadly not going to be strong enough on the right to do what's necessary to save our country. Oh, Nigel is not going to be strong enough on the right to do what is necessary to save our country. We have a massive problem with radical Islam. Reform will not stand up to that. Nigel has said we can't win against Islam. That's admitting we've already lost. Rupert will fight, and I believe he is the man we've been waiting for. How about this from Sharon? Oh my gosh, do I give a damn about what Gordon Ramsay has to say? Hell no. He's just looking for publicity. Lisa in Northern Ireland. Good morning, Mark. Much as I admire Nigel Farage and what he's achieved, Rupert Lowe is a formidable man who really sticks to his principles. He's very effective at holding the civil servants to account on his select committee. It's a pleasure to watch them squirm under his questioning. He's the only public figure who keeps raising the issue of barbaric halal slaughter. That's Lisa in Northern Ireland. More front pages next. Is it time for the right to unite? It's 6:33. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Rupert Lowe has launched a political party, but is it a gift to Labour? Does it guarantee Keir Starmer another 5 years in power? Deborah says, good morning, Mark. I admire Rupert Lowe. However, I do have a concern. The established parties seem to be doing everything they can to work together tactically to stop reform. Unfortunately, this kind of coordinated voting could succeed. As a new party, can Rupert Lowe honestly say that he can overcome that level of tactical voting? Whether people like it or not, reform is rising. Deborah says, the last thing I want is for votes to be split at the very moment when there's finally a chance to remove the current government. If a general election were called in a year or two, or even sooner, having so many new parties and independents running could be catastrophic for those of us hoping for real change and a return to some form of normality. It frightens me, and I can't help feeling this is exactly what the left is waiting for. Split the vote and Labour gets back in. And Deborah concludes by saying, I truly wish him all the best, but I'm starting to think it may be time for me to consider leaving for my second home country. Good luck, says Deborah. Crumbs, well, look, the feelings are coming in thick and fast. Tactical voting is going to be a big aspect of the next election, isn't it? Yeah. And parties of the left, Labour, SNP, Lib Dems and Greens, may work together in certain constituencies. They'll be helped if there are about 3 or 4 right-wing options on the ballot box.
Yes, it will definitely work. I mean, look what happened in France as well, when there was a chance that the far right would get in. So the other two of these 3 poles of French political spectrum ganged up. Of course they would, though. It's very easy to when you don't benefit from this kind of tactical voting, you think it's terrible. But when your side, like, no one really cried when all the Brexit Party candidates stood down to let the Tories win. People were, I mean, retrospectively, you don't think it was a good idea. But you were thinking, OK, no, I see, you've got to get the opposite side out. So everyone tactically votes. But it will be so successful. Yeah, and with another party in the mix, it's all about just trimming off that extra couple of the cream off the top. You get another 5% off a vote, and all of a sudden you get knocked into 2nd or 3rd place with our system. Yeah. You've got to be realistic. The first past the post system is all about numbers. It's just that main gallop.
Most definitely. What do you make of this story? It's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch, Steve, and it's a Green Party councillor. She's a grandmother who's taking her children to an army training camp in Crowborough in East Sussex to hand Valentine's cards created by those grandchildren to give them to undocumented men. This is not too popular among my viewers and listeners. What do you think of it?
Are we sure it's not April the 1st? Because it very much...
You have to wonder.
This is not even a good idea from their side, is it? You know what's happening in terms of the story is a lot of these men, these undocumented, maybe they're just coming here to seek a new life, and the narrative is that they might be a threat to some of our younger women. So let's get kids to write them a Valentine's card. It hardly clears their record from any kind of dodginess with young'uns, does it? It feels like almost you're tainting them more. I trust people even less if they've received Valentine's cards from kids. They're the ones you should keep an eye on.
Yes, so if that's not a red flag, nothing is.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't even know whether it's legal for children to be instructed to write Valentine's cards for male strangers that they don't know, notwithstanding their legal status in the country.
So are you saying you don't think the kids came up with the idea on their own?
Who knew? Who knew?
None of this looks good. It just looks like she's come up with a really bad idea and has followed through on it.
This is the Green Party councillor who provoked a huge backlash by announcing that she'll be taking her grandchildren to deliver Valentine's Day cards to young male asylum seekers. Anne Cross announced at a febrile public meeting that she plans to take her grandkids to the controversial Crowborough training camp base today. The East Sussex County Councillor made the statement in an attempt to encourage locals to be more open-minded about their new migrant neighbours and to hear the stories of those in the camp. She said, there's nothing like getting to know people and hearing their stories in order to dispel fear. My grandchildren and I painted some Valentine's cards at the weekend, which we're going to be presenting to the men at Crowborough as a welcome. Well, the flip side of this, is she simply trying to make sure that we don't demonise these people you can't just say that everyone that's crossed the channel is a terrorist in waiting. So therefore, is she seeking to say, look, these are human beings, many of them fleeing suffering and persecution?
And if that's her goal, what she should do is what you just did. What a great way of phrasing it. And what you didn't do is get your kids to write a love message to these grown men. And look, if you want these people to not be stigmatised, don't have them walking around Crowborough holding a card that's got like a kid's drawing of a love heart on it. If anything's going to get you beaten up, it's that, isn't it? So it's such a bad idea. Yes, of course. Well, there's two things. She is trying to possibly have the debate about, not all of them are terrorists and your worries need to be talked about. But that's what the right's trying to say. That's what everyone should be saying. We should be talking about these issues, bring in infrastructure, bring in numbers, talk about all of these issues. You don't solve it by doing this headline grabbing, because that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, it's not like they particularly... Her concern isn't these poor men aren't going to get a Valentine's card this year, because there are loads of men not getting Valentine's cards this year. I've been married for long enough. I don't think I'm getting one, and she's not got her kids to write me one. So she's doing this to grab headlines.
She most definitely is, and it's virtue signalling on an epic scale, isn't it? And it's pretty... I would say, I think it's going to go down very badly with families that have been impacted by criminals who have actually, hurt their loved ones who should have not arrived on a dinghy. Pretty serious stuff. The weekend, Andrew's security officers may be questioned on women at the palace. Ex-Prince's Royal Protection Officer has contacted police about female visitors at Buckingham Palace, offering to help their inquiry into links with Epstein. The allegation that officers were the allegation is that officers were told not to record Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's guests in an official log. These Andrew headlines, they just keep on coming, don't they?
Yep. Do you know what? The Prince of Wales is absolutely right on this, isn't he? When he said, as soon as the Mateless interview happened, he was like, come on, we've got to get some distance. This is going to be a stain on the royal family. Yeah. He nailed that from a distance. How true this is. Yeah, you know what? It keeps coming. I don't think it's going to get better. And... we've known this bit for a while, though. Even this is just about who were visiting him at home. But we also know, if there's one thing you know about a prince, someone in line to the throne, he always has close protection people with him, which means people knew. Don't tell me that they weren't aware of what was happening. If I went to some sort of dodgy island, I'd be going on my own and you might not know what happened. But if you turn up with security, there are effectively witnesses. Do you know what I mean? You are paid for witnesses. Some people know exactly what's been gotten up to through all of this, and I guess they signed some sort of thing. But come on, it's time to let them speak.
Well, that's right. His security personnel, other loved ones, Beatrice and Eugenie, it can't have escaped their attention that their father had a libidinous appetite.
Well, I don't know. That seems harsh. I think if anyone, there are two reasons why they might not be fully cognizant of all the details. If you're going to hide it from anyone, you hide it from your daughters. And also, if ever there's someone who will have a mental block for fear of needing extra therapy later in life, it would be the daughters, wouldn't it? I imagine they have mentally blocked off any info that they saw.
Do you have any sympathy for Beatrice and Eugenie?
Oh, yes. Of course you do. In general, I don't have loads of sympathy for the royals. I think you lucked out. You were born into a family that, for some reason, we as a nation still believe you're better than us. And we still do. We still have this system that is fundamentally one family's better than us. OK, there's some wrong-uns in there. That's what we're learning now. There are some that we don't particularly like, but we still have to pretend they are just innately better than us. But it's not the daughter's fault at all, is it? I imagine that's now kind of what they're going to be known for. They went through that short phase of being known for weird hats. And now they're known for dodgy dad. They'll be looking back on those fascinating years thinking, oh, those are the days.
You're quite right. Bring back the weird hats and the odd clipped accents. Has the case for Britain becoming a republic been emboldened by the Andrew scandal?
Yeah, do you know what? If the monarchy actually meant anything, and I hope I don't get beheaded for this, which actually you can't be these days, and that's another point of why it doesn't mean what it used to. Right? In the olden days, if you're a king, you could chop someone's head off, and also you'd be on the back of a horse. This is why our last monarch, she became the longest reigning monarch. As if that was impressive. Modern-day medicine and also not having to fight people with swords are the two reasons why monarchs these days really pack in the years in comparison to how they used to. But it doesn't really do anything, does it? I know in theory Charles can suddenly get rid of a government, but it's just never going to happen. It's all pretense. It is effectively Madame Tussauds.
So therefore you could only get cross about the idea of a monarchy if they had actual power, and they don't. Your argument is it's decorative and ceremonial. They're basically trinkets, national trinkets.
Yeah, and whatever they make the argument that they're kind of washing their face financially, you just about let them get away with it.
Although you are right about that, but I think more will come to light about what Andrew was up to. Andrew Lowney, the man whose book entitled was The Beginning of the End for Andrew, which came out at the end of last year, has told me on this programme that there's worse to come. And he said that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor should be in jail. If he has committed crimes that could lead to a jail term, does that not suggest that the existence of a monarchy makes it easier for someone to break the law and surely then undermines its very purpose?
Well, I'd agree with you if it weren't for the fact he's not the only name we're talking about from the Epstein files who may slightly have been accused of, and sure says that they're innocent of, sending information. I know there are two sides to this. We should always be remembering the victims of the sex side of this, but actually the thing that's going to be the crime is the information, the passing on information. That's the really worrying thing. That's the thing that really pulls the rug out from underneath the authority.
Things which are commercially sensitive or have national security implications.
Yeah, there's the crime that I think these people should very much be tried for early doors. But it's not just the royals, is what I'm saying. Andrew wasn't the only one, was he? We can all list another Prince of Darkness who might have some accusations coming his way.
Well, that's a fascinating thought, isn't it? It's 6:45, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. We've got a voice note from Pete on the very woke Green Party councillor who's got her grandkids to do Valentine's cards for illegal immigrants. Take a listen. We'll get to that voice note in just a moment. We're just putting 10p in the meter.
These teachers trying to get little children to write Valentine's card to strange men of any nationality. That, in my mind, is sick, perverted, and a danger to children. And these people need to be looked into. It's child safety. If my kids were still that young and going to that school, I would be withdrawing my kids from that school. Because if they're teaching them this sort of thing, what else are they indoctrinating into them? I mean, who knows how many Jeffrey Epstein's knocking around in these schools all over the country? You don't know, do you? Because to put even the idea into the kid's head to write a Valentine's card to a strange man, even a strange man down the road, let alone a strange man that comes in as an illegal immigrant, they must be off their bloody rockers.
Well, Pete, I love your voice note and I completely agree. Producer Dean said it. He had it right before the meeting. We gathered around 2 a.m. for the full programme meeting, let me tell you that. And I can take what he said is he said that this woman should be in jail. She said that this granny should be in jail for exposing her grandkids to danger. It is wild, isn't it? And we had a similar conversation on the show yesterday about the idea that you can socially transition at primary school, the idea that little Johnny goes to school with his lunchbox and his pencil case, and he comes out of school at the end of a long day as Joanna. We talked about it on the show, and a couple of you said that that was child abuse. Well, I wonder whether it's child abuse to use the young person to essentially signal your virtue and to do these Valentine's cards for undocumented men. It is wild. It seems illegal to me. It's unethical and deeply wrong. Welcome to the radical left. So much more to come. Rupert Lowe has launched a brand new political party. Is it Nigel Farage's worst nightmare? And does it gift Labour 5 more years in power? It's 6:47. This is Talk Breakfast.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, 6:49. Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. The woke Green Party councillor and grandmother has taken her kids to a disused army barracks in order to give these undocumented men Valentine's cards. That's Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. A Daily Mirror front page, royal exclusive, a stain on the family. William's fury at Andrew over Epstein revelations. Prince William wanted his Uncle Andrew banished over revelations about him and Jeffrey Epstein 6 years before he was finally exiled. The Prince of Wales clashed with his father Charles and the late Queen after the Duke's 2019 car crash. BBC Newsnight interview. He branded Andrew a stain on the family and a threat to the monarchy. His fury is revealed for the first time in a tell-all biography by Mirror royal editor Russell Myers. Daily Star exclusive. When the stars talk, they talk to the Daily Star. Race ace Ruby. Cheltenham's the best of Britain. The Cheltenham Festival and its racegoers are the best of Britain, according to the newspaper's guest editor today, jockey legend Ruby Walsh. Weekend now. Andrew's security officers may be questioned on women at the palace. Ex-Prince's royal protection officers have contacted police about female visitors at Buckingham Palace, offering to help their inquiry into links with Epstein. The Sun newspaper, Gordon Ramsay exclusive. Don't forget where you came from, Brooklyn. Stars plea to end Beck's rift. Family friend Gordon Ramsay is acting as a peacemaker in the bitter falling out between Brooklyn Beckham and his parents David and Victoria. The restaurateur and TV chef has been in contact with the couple's estranged son since the feud exploded following his marriage to Nicola Peltz. Gordon said in time Brooklyn will come to understand what his parents mean to him, adding, remember where you came from. Daily Express, recognise our heroes who put lives on the line. This is an exclusive. A George Cross hero has backed the Daily Express campaign for a medal to honour emergency workers injured putting their lives on the line. Well, I'm quite happy to back that campaign. Also on the front page of the Daily Express, William's call for Andrew to leave before the rot set in. Well, I think that demonstrates the great kind of leadership that we're going to see from William when he becomes king. And last but not least for now, Daily Mail. Mandelson's ghost flights on oligarch jet. Peter Mandelson took ghost flights on a Russian oligarch's private jet to a summit with Vladimir Putin when he was EU Trade Commissioner, according to the Daily Mail. And that's the problem with the Peter Mandelson story, Steve N. Allen, is that the headlines are going to keep on coming. And every time we see another example of Mandelson's inappropriate behaviour, his hands in the till, bending the rules for his own financial benefit, it's going to hurt Starmer, because Starmer's the one that gave him a top job.
Yep. But in Starmer's defence, how could you possibly know that a man who had to resign in shame twice and had the nickname Prince of Darkness might be something of a problem? Where were the red flags? Where were the signs? I mean, the fact that the defence to this is, well, I did ask him about his relationship with Epstein, and you know what? He lied. Who would have thought that someone who hangs around with an international paedophile might lie a bit? So, again, all of these things are impossible for Starmer to spot from a distance, isn't it? But it is damaging. This is the rot, though. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we always need to remember the victims, all of this side of it. But the rot, the problem with these kind of people is they're in it to line their own pockets, to fill their own till, and the information leaks, that's the stuff that's really going to be the criminal side of this. And I know you're going to have to do your Ofcom thing at the end and say, I'm sure he denies things, but doesn't it just look like the real... Why would they be friends? Why would Epstein want to know Peter Mandelson? If you are famous for trafficking young women, Mandelson, you're barking up the wrong tree, if you know what I'm saying.
You are.
Not his cup of tea. So why would they want to know each other? It's got to be about information and money. And then for Ofcom reasons, I'm sure he denies absolutely everything.
Well, partly because, nicely done, partly because we don't really know how Epstein made his millions.
Yeah.
And that's always a red flag, isn't it?
Did you see that? I think it was last weekend or maybe the weekend before when the police went round to Mandelson's two places, the one in Wiltshire and the one in London. And the headline, I think the Daily Mail had the headline, they raid his £12 million property. And it was just left there as this kind of like, wonder how he gets a £12 million property. Because it's not as if you should make that much money just by being, you know, an advisor to New Labour.
Most definitely. And we've got this story in The Sun. And it's quite interesting, actually. This is a bit of a showbiz drama because you've got two families in the throes of a civil war, respectively. Gordon Ramsay exclusive. Don't forget where you came from, Brooklyn. Now, Gordon Ramsay, TV chef and entrepreneur, restaurateur, he is best mates with David Beckham. David Beckham's eldest son, Brooklyn, has disowned the family, moved to America with his billionaire-esque wife,
understandable,
Nicola,
yeah.
who could blame him? So he's in the States, and it's exactly like Harry and the royal family, which is he's castigated and cut himself off from his mother and father. Ramsay's not happy about this because he loves David and he loves Brooklyn. He's trying to knock heads together. The only problem is his own family is at war as well, because his daughter and his son-in-law have been in a drama with the son-in-law's family, with that boy's mother not invited to the wedding. It's very hard to keep up. It's like EastEnders. But anyway, can old Gordon Ramsay save the day? Can he save the Beckhams?
I think when you get to the stage where shouty, angry, sweary man Gordon Ramsay is the peacemaker in your family dynamic, no, it's too late. And the idea that he says to Brooklyn, remember where you come from, like famously the reason he's called Brooklyn is because that's where he was conceived. This guy cannot forget where he came from. But it's not going to happen because I kind of understand some of the dynamics. Imagine that you are David and you're Victoria, and, you know, they don't have the humble... It's that scene in the documentary where, you know, Victoria's dad used to drive a Mercedes, but still relatively humble in comparison to where they are now. They've grafted. They have put the work in. They have sold themselves thoroughly to magazines. You know, David Beckham's running around in adverts in his pants. They have made their money. They are millionaires, multi-millionaires. And then your son goes and marries the heiress to billions. Oh, even at that wedding, you are still the scum. So I understand how it must hurt a little bit. And by some of the descriptions, it seems like they weren't the best at the wedding. But it's just, you're right, it's a psychodrama for millionaires and billionaires. Fair enough.
They've got more money than sense, haven't they? And these aren't families that are faced with the normal problems that my viewers and listeners are faced with on a daily basis. And that's why Brooklyn Beckham can flounce off to the United States. The issue is that the reason why he's a rich man, the reason why he can move to another country, the reason why he's world famous is because of the efforts of his parents.
Yeah.
He didn't turn up to his dad's 50th. He didn't congratulate his father when he became a knight of the realm. It's not a good look, is it?
No. But I don't know, maybe this is the harshest thing. Maybe this is nothing other than chip on my shoulder and jealousy. You know what, though? You get so much luck being born into a family like that. You kind of hope there's got to be some sort of a problem in your life. If they were just absolutely blessed, then it would feel wrong. The universe requires balance, and the balance is, if you've looked out that much, if you're marrying into billions, and also, it's not like he's just marrying her for her money. I don't want to be crass, but she's an attractive lady, put it that way. And he's getting like £1 million a month pocket money. Oh, the things I would do for that. And you end up marrying such a lovely lady for it. So, do you know what? You're such a lucky man. Yeah, I'm glad you have a little bit of Jeremy Kyle crying about style, you know, in the old TV show. Basically, this is what it is, isn't it? It's the old Jeremy Kyle TV show, just with way better teeth, because they can afford the good dentistry.
That's very, very well put. Listen, what about this? The world's gone mad. A theatre will stop serving sausage rolls during a Peppa Pig show in a considerate step for fans of the series. Grimsby Auditorium confirmed it will pull all pork products from its cafe's menu for the next month's production. It follows a plea from animal rights charity PETA to remove pig flesh from the menu to honour Peppa's growing family and all the residents of Peppa Town. Your reaction?
Do they know that Peppa Pig isn't a real pig? If not, then I should have said sit down first. This is a shocker. So just kids thing, well, kids don't even really link with, you know, what was it? Ham and cheese panini's been taken off. You can barely even recognise that as being anything linked to a pig. So somehow they've banned this, and I don't think it doesn't make any sense at all. I watch a TV show with my young uns, because 2 and 3 now, the two ages of my kids, and on CBeebies there's a show called Roots and Fruits, where vegetables and fruits sing songs, and I will sit there eating a salad and I don't feel like a monster, because you don't have to link the two, do you? It's not. And also, why just ban pork? If you're PETA, you should be against all meats. I don't want to dog whistle the backside out of this one, but doesn't it seem odd that it's just pork. If ever there's one group in society that we do think seems to be trying to make social change, it's the Peppa Pig fans.
I tell you, I love it. Well, I'm delighted to say Steve is staying with us for more common sense and sharp wit. A developing story breaking right now. Gary Lineker attacks Jim Radcliffe. That's next.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no migrant embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 7. Happy Saturday, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm with you for the next 3 hours. I've got tomorrow off, by the way, and I'm here all of next week for Talk Breakfast, in for the brilliant Jeremy Kyle. Do join me then. And breaking this morning, arch Nigel Farage critic Rupert Lowe launches a new national political party. But could a divided right hand Labour another 5 years in power? Well, I can tell you that just as we came on air, Elon Musk posted on his own social media platform X saying join Rupert Lowe in Restore Britain, because he's the only one who will actually do it. So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts? Rupert Lowe launches a new national political party, potentially backed by Elon Musk's millions. Is the only real winner Sir Keir Starmer? Meanwhile, a left-wing terror group, Palestine Action, win a landmark case in the High Court. Is this yet another example of two-tier Britain? Now, my priority for the next 3 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airways. My phone number is 0344 499 1000, 0344 499 1000. Tommy is taking your calls today. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. And I want your reaction to this massive story, which is a Green Party councillor who's taking her grandchildren to an army training camp in East Sussex today to hand over Valentine's cards created by the children to give to up to 500 undocumented men who have broken into country illegally. Your reaction, it's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. 0344 499 1000, so much to get through. Dolan's Dispatch, big game names, big guests. Can I tell you that you can hear the show on the radio, you can watch us. Just head over to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop, and as the saying goes, let's talk. So much breaking news. We'll get to this political development. Rupert Lowe's brand new political party. He's going to field candidates the length and breadth of the country. But we've got another developing story at 7:05. The Sir Jim Ratcliffe race row continues as Gary Lineker attacks the Manchester United co-owner in an episode of his latest podcast, which is called, what is it called? The Rest is Football. Take a listen to being attacked by Gary.
Right, they're generally the billionaires. They often seek to divide us. You know, I watched it, and I mean the hypocrisy. Really, the guy's a migrant himself, an economic migrant. He lives in Monaco. I mean, you can have a gripe all you like, but at least be here and be paying tax and contributing to our society. And I would say a lot of the immigrants, the migrants that do come in, contribute enormously, and facts show you that.
Facts show you that. So this is old Gary Lineker, who's concerned that Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't pay his taxes. Is this the same Gary Lineker that sued HM Revenue and Customs so that he could avoid paying £4.5 million in tax? Is that the same Gary Lineker? Asking for a friend. Let's get reaction live in the studio. Steve N. Allen, broadcaster and comedian. And down the line, retired Scotland Yard detective, Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Mike, let me start with you. Your reaction to this intervention from Gary Lineker. Has he got a point?
Well, we know Lineker's left-wing views, don't we? And when he talks about contribution, we also know the stats now that too many economic migrants actually cost the country a small fortune. Now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, "Oh, I'm sorry about the language and the like," but I think he's spoken up for a lot of people. A lot of people are concerned about mass immigration. We've had more immigration in this between 2000 and now than there was in 1,000 years before that. And people can see areas changing before their very eyes. You only have to come with me to Whitechapel tonight. Come with me to Sparkhill, places in Stoke, in Bolton. They're not multicultural at all. They're fully taken over. And so they're just not English in any way. People do not speak English there. And whoever thought this was a good idea? Yes, it's right that we can bring in doctors and engineers and wonderful people who are absolutely qualified. But that's not happening at the moment. And what people see is people come here, they don't integrate, they form their own little communities, and rather than multiculturalism, we have monocultures in areas, and it is not right. And people are speaking out now, and thank you to Talk and stations like that we can say this isn't right. We welcome people here. I've got a multicultural family myself, but the facts are we cannot carry on in the way it's going, and people have to say so.
Stephen Allen, do you think that Gary Lineker has a point about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and double standards?
No. because I'd love to know what Gary Lineker's point of view is, but we didn't actually hear it. All we heard is a reason why Jim Ratcliffe shouldn't be allowed to say a thing. Oh, you don't even pay tax. Well, no, argue whether his point is right or not. Even if you should, in theory, ideally live here and pay tax, get down to talking about whether it's right or not. You might not like the word colonise. We can debate whether you think the definition of the word colonise fits here, but the point of the actual, if you watch the full interview, it wasn't just that word, was it? He was making a point about numbers, about whether a society is coping with the numbers. So he wasn't saying zero migration, which some people have that point of view, but you don't have to think that to want to have a debate about what Jim Ratcliffe said. What I don't like is the pushback against it is, and I've seen this loads online, is you're not allowed to say that. You're not having a discussion if the 2 points of view are, I think this thing, you're not allowed to say that. Tell him why he's wrong. And he makes the point, Lineker in that clip made the point saying that effectively some migrants contribute. Yeah, because that's part of the debate and you're allowed to say that. So you're also allowed to say that the numbers might need looking at. This per capita concept, which now I never thought the concept of dividing one number by another would be a polarising political point of view. If you're on the left, all of a sudden you find it racist to even think about dividing a number by how many people contribute
Well, can
to
you
that
explain the difference between economic growth per capita and per regular national GDP and then per head? What is the difference?
Because it's really easy to get GDP up, the gross domestic product, just by having more people. Do you know what? I even did a voiceover about this for a documentary thing in Canada, because they went through exactly the same thing. That if you want to get GDP up, it is really easy. You cheat the numbers. You get more people coming in who contribute some, and that adds to that number.
Because they arrive and they go shopping and they become consumers.
Yeah. But if you try and work out per person, so if you're working like an average amount, that's just dividing one number by another. Shouldn't have been tricky. It's not even GCSE maths, and yet now it's considered like politically a thing of the right, some sort of dog whistle move to try and work out if per person you're doing better. And that's how you'd work out productivity. And yet, for some reason, they find it a thing that you're not allowed to do. And this is what bothers me. Debate should be about debating the issue, right at the top of the pyramid there. What's the thing you're saying, do I agree or disagree? Rather than, oh, you used a word that I think could be seen as offensive, so you shouldn't be allowed to talk.
And economic growth has been sort of slowly, anemically growing for the last few years. But per head, per viewer and listener to this show, we're getting poorer. It's going down.
Yeah.
And that should be the real figure. Mike, do you think that parts of Britain have been colonised? Was Sir Jim Ratcliffe wrong to back away from that language?
I think they have, yes. And if you look at what gets me with white liberals, if you look at places like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you have them standing up and saying, look, these lands, they originally belonged to these Native Americans.
Stolen land. No one's illegal on stolen land, Mike.
Yeah, so they're saying it's stolen land all the time. So if you went to Spark Hill in Birmingham, does somebody stand up and say, look, we've got to acknowledge that this land belonged to these sort of white Christian Brummies in times past? So you've got to acknowledge, it cannot carry on this. It's the numbers, I think, that's firstly. But it's the concentration of numbers that people go to one place and then they just fit into their own little communities and there's absolutely no integration at all. As I say, towns like Bolton, where I'm from, there are two halves to the town. One is white with some black people, some Jewish, Hindus, some Chinese, and then the other bit of the town is Muslim. And the two sides very rarely meet. You have schools where the entire school class is Muslims. That can't be right. How do you integrate into a country if it's like that? People are free to have whatever religion they like, but the thing is we need to mix together. We need to work and play together to be a society, but otherwise society fractures.
And you're right to say that what's happened is that parts of the country have become a monoculture and one which is alien to the host culture of the United Kingdom. And I think that's indisputable, Mike. Is the problem with the word colonised that it implies a plan, some kind of territorial objective, and that might be a bit far of the mark?
These are semantics, aren't they? All the time the left will dive into a word, attack, and as your other guest says, what the basic premise is you're not allowed to talk about this. Shut your mouth, keep quiet. We have a plan. The left have a plan, and they're going to drive that forward, whatever the cost, and they'll ruin people, they'll attack people, they'll do everything in their power. That you've got, what do I admire about the left is their utter commitment. They're crazy. You know, it's like, as an example, this woman taking kids to taking Valentine's cards to a camp full of 500 men. That's how determined these people are. You know, she's prepared to put her own kids at risk for her own ridiculous ideology. That's how wicked they are, and that's what we've got to guard against.
Indeed. Can you tell me what you make of that as a former police officer, a former Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, just in terms of safeguarding that children are drawing and creating Valentine's cards which will be presented by those children to undocumented men? Can you just give me your sort of policing overview of that?
Well, the first thing I would consider is that many of these men come from countries where you can marry a girl at age 7. So what is the message that's being sent out to these men that people with love hearts and the like are coming to them? Many of them will already consider that the West is decadent and evil. We know that the views from the grooming gangs all over the north of England and as far down as Oxford and places like that. So I would be saying to this councillor, I've got real issues about you taking your children there, and I will be considering reporting this matter to the social services because you may well be putting those children at risk.
What do you think about this, Steve and Alan? Is this woman not trying to say, look, we're all human beings, and she's sharing a positive message of love? After all, you can't say that all of these men are terrorists or murderers in waiting.
There must be a way of getting that point across without trying to get your kids to chat up grown men, grandkids. I mean, look, I know this happens with politicians. John Gummer got his kids to eat burgers when mad cow disease was in the burgers. So politicians are always willing to use their family for political gain, but it is sickening, isn't it? Like, this is not the message that you need to send. You can say, look, these people. You can have the debate. You can be right or wrong about wanting migrants and refugees to come to the UK, but I don't think you solve anything by saying, you know, these people who have a reputation, rightly or wrongly, for, you know, some of them found guilty of sexually assaulting 13-year-olds. Let's get kids to write them Valentine's cards is the wrong thing. Plus, also, wasn't St Valentine's, I guess, a Christian saint or something? So this woman's oppressing all of these people with their Christian values.
Would it be too strong, Mike, to say that this woman is pimping her grandchildren in order to virtue signal and to politicise a very delicate situation?
Well, I think I wouldn't use that. It's not a word I would use myself, but I think she's putting them at risk. She's putting them at risk with men who we don't... Like you say, some of these men may be lovely. They might be decent chaps. But some of them, as we've seen with the crimes that people have been convicted of, just this week in Warwickshire, an Afghani convicted of abduction and rape. We know that Afghanis are 20 times more likely to be involved in sexual offences than a native-born Briton. And so why I wouldn't take my grandchildren there for all those common sense reasons. But as I've said, their ideology trumps everything. And so she's prepared to do this, and it just shows how wicked they are.
And Mike, as you say, it's one of my favourite catchphrases of yours, the left, they never take a day off.
They never sleep. They never sleep. We'll have a rest from our activities. These people, they never sleep. They're absolutely committed to their ideology.
That's it. That is the catchphrase. I'm going to get a T-shirt, they never sleep. And I'm going to send you royalties for that, Mike, because it's a massive story. Mike, can I get your views on another developing story, which is the news that Rupert Lowe has launched a new political party. He's going to field candidates the length and breadth of the country. Is the only real winner Keir Starmer?
Yeah, it's tragic, really, isn't it? The fallout from with Rupert Lowe and the reform, it was really sad, really, and the involvement of the police and stuff. I can see why he's angry and bitter. He often talks a lot of sense. He does a lot of work in Parliament. But my counsel to him would be to do this, you're just splitting. Let the split be on the left. Let them all fight. Let the Greens, the Greens and Labour and Lib Debs, let them all fight amongst themselves, because the danger is with them, of course. They are good at joining together, voting tactically to defeat, as we saw in Wales, where the Reform candidate should have won. So you're doubling the danger there by splitting the right. A Tory vote now is the wasted vote, in my view. Don't create any more wasted votes on the sensible. This is not far right. This is just sensible right. The people, ordinary folk of this country, need a party to vote for. So let's all get together and pull on the same rope.
Although, Stephen Allen, there are some that argue that if Nigel Farage wins the next election, he will let people down, because what he'll do is he'll just be another example of the uni party. Some would draw attention to ex-Tories joining Reform UK. If the country really wants proper change, the argument goes, you better vote for Rupert Lowe. And that is the view of the world's richest man, Elon Musk.
We've been saying that for the last few weeks, whenever they've been doing this weird phase of importing people who lost the last election. I'm not quite sure why who's going to help us win the next one. Let's look at all these ones who lost the last one. Let's go for them. Because that was the angle that Reform had. The freshness, we don't have 14 years of failure that gets brought up in all the arguments. And their weakness was a lack of provable ability. But then they've got the local councils, and that would have been, I thought that was the strategy. Get yourself at the local level, do well there, not increase council tax. I know some of them are doing, so that's not going to help. But you could have shown your ability on the smaller level and say, let us extrapolate this up. Whereas what they're doing is saying, oh, we've got experience because we've got these bunch of failures in. So yeah, I think they're effectively importing in uniparty, although that concept of uniparty, some people are now thinking that there's this one slice of politics on the right and everything else would be uniparty. Well, fair enough, you might think that, but then the uniparty is always going to win. They will always have the numbers if that's how you view it.
Most definitely. How do you see this one being resolved, Mike? Do you think that Rupert Lowe will somehow form a coalition with Nigel Farage? How could it play out at the next election?
Well, we've seen that Rupert Lowe has voted with Reform in the Commons, so he's a pragmatic man. He's a very clever man. I think he's a very successful businessman, and up to a point, and he really does have a real reason to feel angry about just all the things that was done to him. But I do think he's a pragmatic man, and he's determined that the country shall improve. So let's hope they can work together.
Mike, come and see us again soon. We love having you on the show. The left never sleep. There you go. That is the catchphrase. Mike, have a good Saturday. My thanks to the brilliant Steve N. Allen. Steve, are you performing anywhere of note in the weeks ahead?
Yes, I'm in Bethnal Green tonight, actually, in the old backyard. Plus, before then, I'll be having...
Wait, hasn't it been colonised, Bethnal Green?
I guess it has.
Do you need special papers to get in now?
Yes, I have to.
And a translator?
I have to cover my hair, which doesn't take long.
Is that the backyard?
Yes, I'll be there tonight.
What a fine house of comedy that is. Listen, you're a genius. We love having you on. Come back and see us again soon. Steve N. Allen, what's the YouTube show?
It's on YouTube / at Mr. Stephen Allen. A couple of times a week I'll review me talking about the news. Could you imagine such a thing?
No better man to do it. Thank you so much for joining us. Next up, as Rupert Lowe launches a new political party, is the real winner, Keir Starmer. Your calls. It is 7:21. This is Talk Breakfast.
I don't think Labour know what they're doing on this. They're saying to my daughters that they're not allowed to look at social media. They can't, buy a non-alcohol beer. They won't be able to have a vape, but they'll be able to vote at 16. It just doesn't make any sense. I think this is going to backfire, actually, for Keir Starmer, because I don't think that young people are going to look at this Labour government and think it's actually doing things in their interest. The country feels like it's in a mess at the moment.
I don't...
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Happy Saturday, one and all. It is 7:29. This is Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan in with you for the next hour and a half. Let me tell you, I've got tomorrow off celebrating my auntie's 80th birthday. Auntie Bernie, may God bless you. So I'm off tomorrow and I'm here all week for weekday breakfast in for the brilliant Jeremy Kyle, 6 till 10. Do join me then. I've just got a brew on the go. Have you got the kettle on? Let me know what you're going to do this morning. Are you halfway through a full English? I've got a very strong tea and full fat milk. And let's get to this very, very big story, which is the news that Rupert Lowe has launched a national political party, potentially with the support of Elon Musk's millions. But is the only real winner Keir Starmer? This is Judy in Lincoln. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Talk Breakfast. What, as you wake up on a Saturday morning, how do you receive this news that Rupert Lowe wants to run candidates the length and breadth of the country against Reform UK?
I'm absolutely delighted. Happy birthday to Bernie, first of all.
Oh, thank you, Judy. I appreciate that.
It's fantastic. It's the best news that we could have. He was the best MP that Reform had by a country mile. Nigel decided to get rid of him for whatever reason, but the
clash of egos, maybe, Judy?
Yeah, 100%. He was more popular, wasn't he? So I personally think Nigel couldn't cope with that and got rid of him. Personally, I am politically homeless. So I have a really, really good Tory MP where I live. She's brilliant. And I would vote for her because she is really good at her job. But if somebody can stand up for what I want, which is that men should never be in my space. So when Nigel Farage appointed a lady who said, as Justice Secretary, who said there should be a clause where trans women are allowed into a female prison, I thought, you're not the guy for me.
Yes, and I'm racking my brains as to which figure that was. Was that Vanessa Frake? Who's the prison spokesperson, but I remember there was a figure within Reform who'd had that position in the past.
And it should be on a case-by-case basis. No, it shouldn't. No man should ever be locked up with a woman. Can you imagine? That's horrendous. So that was me done with Reform. So when Rupert is an amazing character. He's not there for the money. He's not there for the fame.
He doesn't take it. Did you know he doesn't take a salary in the House of Commons,
yeah, exactly.
Judy?
Exactly.
Every month he gives it away to a local cause.
He's the best MP we have. And how Nigel thought that he could get rid of him was just... I can't imagine what he was thinking. But it's just ego.
Well, Rupert's a good friend of mine. He's ideologically consistent. He's a gentleman. He's been a successful entrepreneur, a football club owner at Southampton.
Correct.
And a farmer, so he knows the meaning of real work, Judy, and dealing with the elements. But is there any use having this heroic figure launching a national political party if it gives Labour another 5 years in power? What's the achievement there?
So what I think we're forgetting is how many different factions of the left there are. So there's the Communist Party, there's the Workers' Party, there's your party, there's the Labour, there's Greens. I think we're forgetting that. I think we're concentrating a little bit on there are too many factions of the right. There's more on the left.
And what do you think is the contribution that Rupert's party can make to the national conversation? Now that you're delighted this has been launched, what actually happens in real terms, Judy?
Okay, so we're 3.5 years from an election. The reform was launched, I believe, in January 2021.
Yes, rebranded from the Brexit Party around that time.
From the Brexit Party, exactly. So there's enough time for exactly the same thing to happen with Rupert's party as there was for reform to this point. So I think this is a great thing. They've got enough time. There's plenty of people. If you just look on X to see how popular the man is, how many people agree with him, how many people repost and like it. Okay.
Oh, I mean, every single post on X goes viral, doesn't it? From Rupert Lowe.
Of course it does. Of course it does. So he's got a massive backing, huge, because he's a genuinely lovely human being. And that's what we're lacking in politics. That's what we're lacking, and that's what he provides.
Now, Judy, can I just ask you, the end game here, is it the idea that there's enough time for Restore UK, Rupert's party, to become the main party of the right in the country?
Yes.
Is that your hope, that he actually will go past Farage and actually have a landslide victory on his own and become Prime Minister?
100%.
Right.
He's got plenty of time to take everybody back, to pull everybody back from all these different from Advance, from Reform, from wherever. Reform's already a busted flush, Mark.
Wow.
You cannot drag in Rupert Jenrick and Nadine Dorries and all the rest. You can't pull them in and expect it to be untainted. We all know what they did whenever they were in the Tory party. We know that.
And Judy, listen, I've got a job for you on Talk Breakfast. I want you to be my official Restore UK contact, right? The Restore UK correspondent. Will you do that? And from time to time, will you call the show and check in with me about how it's going, this vision you've got for a truly conservative voice to lead the country and to replace Nigel Farage as the dominant party of the right? Will you do that for me and call me again soon?
I'd love to.
Yeah, because I'm just very interested in your perspective on that, Judy. Judy is so delighted. Thank you for your call, Judy. Have an excellent Saturday. We'll speak soon. Judy is so happy that Rupert Lowe has launched a national political party. She's ecstatic. She's delighted. The reason why, and I understand why Judy's happy, because Rupert Lowe is a robust conservative and then some. He's an ultra-conservative. He's a pure, true right-winger. There's nothing diluted. There's no obfuscation. He wants deportation flights happening on a daily basis. He wants 10 flights a day for 5 years. And that is going to be a very popular message. But the question you've got is, do you allow the great to be the enemy of the good? I'm going to take more calls on this very, very shortly. What do you think about this? Rupert Lowe launching a political party with the support of Elon Musk, potentially Elon Musk's millions. Who is the real winner? Is it Keir Starmer and this Labour government? A Knight of the Realm will comment on this very issue next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 7:34. Breaking news. Rupert Lowe has launched a new political party with the support of the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Can Restore UK replace Reform as the dominant party of the right? Can Rupert Lowe become Prime Minister? That is the view of my caller Judy, who is now the official correspondent of Restore UK here on this network. Judy is 100% correct, says Terry. Farage is far too much of a Muslim fan. Controlled opposition. Christina says, no, Mark, Judy's talking rubbish. Reform UK are the only ones who are truly professional now. Rupert Lowe is a one-man band. He takes no salary. Big deal. He just wants to lead. Ben Habib, another bitter person. They're not putting the British people first. So sad. This from Carl. What is this, Dolan? What's going on? The Restore Party Broadcast Corporation? H says, I agree with Judy. Steph says, good morning, Mark. Great news about Rupert Lowe. He's a gentleman and believes in my beautiful country. So that's the question. Does the decision by Rupert Lowe to launch a political party with Elon Musk's support and possibly his millions, does it deliver true conservatism for the country? Can Rupert Lowe save Britain, or does it split the right votes and guarantee Labour another 5 years in power? Who better to ask than a man that has sat on those green benches with distinction? Formidable former Lichfield MP and now Knight of the Realm, Sir Michael Fabricant. Good morning, Sir Michael.
Good morning, Mark.
It's very good to see you. We know that the Conservatives have recovered ground to a certain degree, that Kemi Badenoch has found her political voice, a commanding figure in the House of Commons. You've got Nigel Farage, the most consequential politician of his generation that wasn't in the House of Commons, by delivering Brexit. And then you have Rupert Lowe, who is a very vocal Conservative voice in the House of Commons, who has launched a brand new political party. Who is the real winner, would you say, of this split within the right?
Undoubtedly Keir Starmer, who I think is one of the worst prime ministers that has ever been. It's interesting, by the way, that Keir Starmer is the most unpopular prime minister since records began, and they began way back in Margaret Thatcher's time. And the trouble with Restore UK is it's going to split the right vote. I don't agree with Judy that there's an equal split on the left. Well, there is with the Greens, but actually, you know, the confusion. First of all, restore and reform both sound very similar. So even if people have never heard of restore, they're going to make an accident possibly and vote for them instead of reform.
It will be confusing. On the ballot slip, it will be confusing, won't it?
It will be very confusing. I don't think the average person understands. I mean, it's only just started, the party, but I just don't see them getting the publicity or the organisation. Of course, the other concern for them must be that it is against the law for a political party to receive money from overseas sources. So Elon Musk can't directly fund Restore. That would be illegal. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen. But the real worry is, what will happen is a majority of people in Lichfield and across the country voted for the right. They didn't want Labour. And yet Labour slipped through the middle because the right was split. And, you know, if Rupert Lowe's party actually starts to gain ground, it's going to split even further the right. And you know what? This hopeless, useless, thoughtless Prime Minister Keir Starmer or his successor, Angela Rayner, can you imagine, or whoever, are going to continue with another parliament and the destruction of everything that we hold dear.
So, Michael, at the heart of this is surely the failure of the Conservative Party in government, because, and I'm not wishing to beat you up on a Saturday morning, we're good pals, but it's time for a couple of truth bombs here. If you look at Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, these chaps would have been just good right-wing Tories back in the day. But given how left-wing the Tory party became in government, they've had to set up their own projects. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly a problem in the last 3 or 4 years. We had 14 years in government, and I would say we did a lot. Before COVID, we'd cut back on welfare bills, we were starting to strengthen the armed forces, and we were trying to control immigration by the Rwanda efforts. And even the mere threat of Rwanda, don't forget, meant that many illegal immigrants in the UK left the UK and went across the island. But I do concede that memories of COVID and since COVID and the multitude of prime ministers we had at that time, that last 4 years, were pretty grim.
But Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, they are no more right-wing than Norman Tebbit was.
Or indeed me.
Right.
I mean, and is it right-wing to have patriotic views about the United Kingdom?
But that's the reason why, we've got Reform UK and Restore UK and Reclaim and Recycle and Rebunk and all the other brands. The reason we've got these breakaway brands, Michael, is because the Conservatives stopped being conservative. There was a gap in the market for a right-wing party.
Well, that's right to a certain extent. I mean, I'm going to defend the Conservative Party record.
Good luck with that.
Over 10 of the 14 years. And, you know, I'm a great fan and I'm very fond of Boris. But the Boris wave, allowing more immigrants to come into the UK, were wrong. And, you know, mistakes are made. Of course, the thing about Nigel Farage is that people like him are political virgins. We don't actually know what they would be like in government. And I think people's attitude is, well, Labour cocked up, certainly. The Conservatives cocked up, particularly in those last 4 years. So what's the hell? Let's just give another party a go to cock up too. But that really isn't the right attitude, I don't think. And of course, rather worrying for the future of this country.
Most definitely. It is a concern, isn't it? Keir Starmer, by the way, Sir Michael, lives to fight another day. Is he still on borrowed time, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. The pressure on Keir Starmer comes from a number of directions. First of all, he's an empty vessel. He doesn't have any political policy, and he keeps changing it when he does adopt it. But the key thing, and I know this from friends of mine who are Labour MPs, the key thing is his unpopularity in the country. As I said earlier on, the least popular Prime Minister since records began, and the polling is absolutely disastrous. And one thing about MPs is most of them want to continue to be MPs. So the pressure is still there. And I think the reason why he wasn't deposed was because the process in the Labour Party is somewhat longer than that of the Conservative Party, the changing of a Prime Minister. And I think the view was that you've got these important elections in May. Of course, you've got the by-election in about a week from now, a week and a half or so from now in Gorton and Denton. And that would be made even worse if there was no stability seen, if you like, in the Labour Party, because there was an actual, he'd announced his resignation, and there was, God help us, by the way, a caretaker Prime Minister with David Lammy, who was the Deputy Prime Minister. I suspect, actually, that Keir Starmer would be asked to continue as Prime Minister until they found a replacement. But, you know, once those May elections are out of the way, I think he is toast. I think what will happen is there'll be an immediate move to get rid of him and, you know, have someone in place come late September. 27th of September is the date of the Labour Party conference, where they'll have someone shiny, bright and new. Except you know, Mark, and I know, they won't be new at all. They'll be tainted, because they'll either be from the very left of the party, which I think they will be, or possibly from the centre-right, as in the case of Wes Streeting, though I don't think he's got a hope in hell, because the backbenchers are pretty left-wing, and the membership of the Labour Party and the trade unions, all who have a say in the selection of a new Prime Minister, not us, but them, they'll choose a left-wing leader. So could be Angie Rayner.
Do you think all roads lead to Ranger? Because I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Boris earlier. Do you think that, given that she's a politician that reaches the parts others don't, that she's a populist figure, that she's a headline-making machine, that she's got the common touch, that she's a character and a personality, do you think that Angela Rayner, in a sense, is Labour's Boris Johnson? And could that see her across the line in late summer?
I think they will think possibly that she is all of that. I don't think that. I mean, she's got great personality. I like her. Sometimes we travelled down on the train together she would come from Preston on that train, and I would catch the train at Lichfield, Trent Valley. But, you know, she comes with far too much baggage. Not only the business over her purchase of the house in Hove. I mean, what the hell has Hove got to do with her? I mean, it's not a constituency. It's not somewhere you can easily commute to London from late at night. I mean, I know, because I'm originally from Sussex, actually. I was born in Rottingdean. And when I first became Member of Parliament and didn't have a home in London, I thought, well, maybe I could commute from London to Brighton, which is the route she would have to take. It's not practical. But no, I don't think so, because I think business and everybody else, despite the fact that she's trying very hard at the moment to woo businesses, I think businesses and most people would be very concerned about her left-wing views. And this isn't a left-wing country, and that's the irony. We are not a left-wing country. We've ended up with a Labour Party simply because the right were split. And that's the problem with reform, or you could say the Conservatives now, and it's certainly the problem with Restore. I mean, why choose a name so similar, by the way? Reform, Restore. Both are called Reform or Restore UK. I mean, come on.
The People's Front of Judea. Sir Michael, we know you have a packed schedule this morning. You have to run shortly. Briefly, if you can, therefore. Gary Lineker, breaking this morning, has attacked Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Manchester United co-owner, for saying that Britain has been colonised by immigration. We haven't had your reaction to that story since it broke. Of course, it's been discussed now for a couple of days. Lineker has spoken out. What say you? Do you think the language was wrong? Do you think the message was wrong? What do you think?
I think this country used to pride itself on freedom of speech. And, you know, colonise is an interesting word to use, but so what? So what? What he's saying is that there have been a lot of immigrants coming into the United Kingdom. Now, immigrants who want to work hard, and as I said on Big Brother, no less, you know, my surname is a French surname. I've got Jewish antecedents. And so what? As long as you work in the country and adopt the mores of the country, that's not a problem. The problem comes when people come into this country, don't want to speak English, don't want to accept the liberal values of the United Kingdom. So, you know what, Gary Lineker, why don't you shut the F up?
Wow, I tell you what, dropping some truth bombs this morning. Sir Michael, please join us again soon. Really enjoyed our conversation. Have an excellent Saturday. Sir Michael Fabricant, ex-Tory MP, who has blasted Gary Lineker. Lineker attacks Sir Jim Ratcliffe, effectively implying that the man is racist, calling him a hypocrite because he's a migrant living in Monaco. Well, I think he's a patriot. And I personally want to thank Sir Jim Ratcliffe for his remarks and for sparking this conversation. I think it's all the more heroic that he's spoken out, given that Ratcliffe is insulated from the consequences of Britain's failed open borders experiment, and yet he still speaks out. He's got no skin in the game. He's not making any money from speaking out, but he's doing it because he loves his country. In fact, perhaps he wants his country to be saved so he can leave Monaco and come back to the UK. Why is he in Monaco? Dean Spencer, executive producer of the show. Why is James Dyson a tax exile? Why is Phil Collins a tax exile? Why is Sir Jim Ratcliffe living overseas? Because the taxes are too high here. So what we need is a very pro-business, low-tax environment, because then you'll have national income. And then we can grow the economy and pay the doctors and the nurses and the police officers and fix the potholes. That's the point. It isn't complicated. You get it. I get it. But those who govern us do not. My thanks to Sir Michael. What a lovely man he is. Next up, more bad headlines for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Is it conceivable that the King's younger brother will go to prison? 7:48, this is Talk Breakfast.
genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:51 Talk Breakfast. More devastating headlines for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Front page of the Daily Mirror. Royal exclusive. A stain on the family. William's fury at Andrew over Epstein revelations. Prince William wanted his uncle Andrew banished over revelations about him and Jeffrey Epstein 6 years before he was finally exiled. Well, I would suggest that the Prince of Wales was on the right side of history and demonstrated keen judgment, so lacking from his grandmother Elizabeth and from his father Charles. Let's get reaction from Talk's royal correspondent Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark.
We know, don't we, that the Prince of Wales has a very different attitude towards the handling of this Andrew story compared to his father.
Yes, I think he's taken a pretty dim view of the antics of his uncle and probably wanted a firmer line, because he may have seen the fact that the problems that he was going to drag that Andrew his family into, and they're not going away. And actually, when you think about it, William himself now has got a bit of a problem with his Earthshot Prize, because I think it is within the DP World Tour, the big boss of that company has been stood down because of his links with Jeffrey Epstein, and DP World Tour are one of the founding fathers of the Williams Earthshot Prize. So the web is just all over the place in terms of the royal family being entangled in bits of Epstein's fallout. But for Andrew, that is the biggest problem for the royal family, and they need somehow, and I keep saying to you, Mark, get on the front foot, but every time they seem to be blindsided with more revelations that make it very hard. And maybe police investigations do have to take place to see if Andrew has broken the law.
The tone from William and what we're hearing about his attitude towards his uncle, it's quite clear he's got no time for his uncle Andrew. Do you think that the king is closer to his brother, and has that made it harder for Charles to be so decisive in his handling of Andrew?
Well, I think the loyalty is that his brother, and probably at one stage, sort of believed his story. It's sort of elements of Keir Starmer believing Peter Mandelson and various other people, and took it on trust. But I think the reason why that they eventually stripped him of his title is because in the end, I think even the king realised, I'm not sure where this is going to end, and hence the reason why stripping him of his title as Prince Andrew and then sending him into exile and getting him out of Royal Lodge sort of almost under the cover of darkness, may be suggesting that even the king's patience is being sorely tested. And that's why we saw those statements last week supporting the victims from both the king and queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales, after Prince Edward, when he was in the UAE, also was saying the victims, we need to be taking care of them. So the royal family have just tried to get onto the front foot a bit. But as we say, every time there's more argument. Has Andrew been passing on financial documents that might be at some stage confidential? It all seems to be a drip feed of problems for the royal family. And it is Andrew that is, by his association with Epstein, that is creating those problems.
And William is not king yet, Rupert, but he's a keen and effusive defender of the royal brand. He's the one that walked to church a few years ago and said, "We are very much not a racist family," following the Harry and Meghan Oprah interview. And now he's stepping in again to protect the royal brand against all of these damaging headlines as a result of his uncle Andrew. This is a man that's fighting for the cause, and he knows that he's going at some point to inherit this mess himself when he takes to the throne.
Yes, and that is a problem, and he wants to make sure that he can reign in his way without all these distractions. And let's be honest, since the king has ascended to the throne, this has been the dominant story throughout, and has made it, as well as his cancer diagnosis, has made it very hard. And you just wonder, has the king got the energy? You know, this requires, thought, determination to try and sort this out, yet he's got his own personal struggles, and you can understand that his distraction, and maybe it is hard for him to keep the eye on the ball and just to make sure that we get it right, because he's obviously having to deal with his own health issues, and he wants to be a proactive king, but given the circumstances, this is proving very difficult.
Has the king been too lenient with Andrew because of an unspoken promise to his late mother Elizabeth that he would take care of her once favourite son?
Well, this, I suppose, loyalty, he very, to his mother, and all families might have similar circumstances. But for the king, this is no test of the sort of relationship with his brother, but there's constitutional issues here, and that's the difficulty for him, because this is a constitutional crisis. It is causing a problem for the royal family from a PR perspective, and people are understanding, well, what's the point of the royal family? It just looks like they're going to be covering up and not apologising, not doing enough to get a grip. But sometimes I just feel that the royal family, what's going on in America, it seems to be a complicated political process with redactions and who says what and what's allowed to be put into the public domain, whereas the royal family do at all times seem to be the easy one that seems to be more and more revelations about, whereas in America, looking from the outside, obviously we're not there, look in, it does seem to me that it's harder to get stuff about the various Americans who are connected to Epstein into the public domain, whereas anything to do with Andrew seems to be fair game.
When William becomes king, he will handle these scandals very differently, won't he? There's a steel about William that perhaps his father doesn't have, and a detachment emotionally, Rupert.
I think that is the key point here. William wants to be his own man. He's made it very clear how he wants to operate within the royal household, what he sees as important. We've seen the Earshot Prize, which he's now got to deal with some fallout from that, but also the other issues that he gets involved in. He wants to be a very, I suppose, trying to be a modern monarch when it's his turn, and something that the country can come behind and see that there is a reason why we have a royal family. At the moment, there are people, sort of saying, well, what is the point, when it seems to just be embroiled in more and more scandal? And that's not the purpose of the royal family. It is here to be a stabilising influence, as it were, which we saw from the Queen. Since she died, it does seem that from the King's perspective, it hasn't been an easy road that he's been travelling.
Whether it's women that have been reportedly, allegedly trafficked into Buckingham Palace, or the sharing of national security and commercially sensitive material, Rupert, is it conceivable in a wild scenario that Andrew could wind up in prison? Is it possible that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor could go to jail?
If he is found guilty in a court of law, then there is every chance. But we've got to get to that stage. And any investigation by the police to see if there's a case for him to answer, if he's passing on sensitive documents, that would be a prison sentence in any normal circumstances if found guilty. So for Andrew, I think it does behove the police to look at it for the protection in many ways of the royal family.
Rupert, deeply grateful for your time. Rupert Bellis Talks royal correspondent. There could be worse to come from Andrew. This is Talk Breakfast.
is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to. Because
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side, this is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. A very warm welcome to Talk Breakfast. Happy Saturday, one and all. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Let me tell you that I've got tomorrow off and I'm back all of next week in for Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast. Do join me. A very big 2 hours to come. In Dolan's dispatch in an hour's time, a left-wing Green councillor has decided to deploy her grandchildren to draw Valentine's cards for illegal immigrants in East Sussex. She's going to a army barracks this morning to deliver Valentine's cards to up to 500 undocumented men that have entered the country illegally. The world's gone mad. That is Dolan's dispatch. And breaking this morning, arch Nigel Farage critic Rupert Lowe launches a new national party. But could a divided right hand Labour another 5 years in power? Meanwhile, left-wing terror group Palestine Action win a landmark case in the High Court. Is this yet another example of two-tier Britain? And Gary Lineker attacks Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe for his remarks about immigration and the colonisation of the country. What do you think? Did Sir Jim go too far, or did he say the true bit out loud? 0344 499 1000 is my number. Book your place on the show. Tommy's on the phones today. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. You can hear the show on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online, or you can watch the show, because this is now a television product. So all you do is head to YouTube, search the word talk, hit the live button, and up we pop. As the saying goes, let's talk. And let's do just that in the company of Charlie Downs, who is the campaign director of Restore Britain, a brand new political party that's out there to save the country. Good morning, Charlie.
Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Very well indeed. Congratulations on the launch of this project. And you've won the support of the world's richest man, Elon Musk. I'm just calling up his Twitter feed as we speak. He's excited about the project, and let's see what he's had to say. Elon Musk, here we go. Of course, he regularly shares Rupert Lowe, your leader's posts on his social media platform. He's written, "Join Rupert Lowe in Restore Britain, because he's the only one who will actually do it." First of all, how significant is this support of Elon Musk for this brand new project?
Well, of course, we welcome the support of anybody, and especially somebody with a platform as large as Musk. Of course, he's not a British citizen, but his support is very much appreciated, and he has been a very strong ally to us since we launched. Yeah, but I mean, he's far from the only big name to support what we've been doing. John Cleese, Duncan Bannatyne, among many, many hundreds of thousands of others have voiced their support for what we're doing, because I think, and we all think, that there is a huge appetite among the British public for a genuinely anti-establishment offering, because we feel that Reform, for all their talk of fighting the Uni Party, have essentially become part of the Uni Party. And I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. And so we feel that we have to hold the main parties to account by applying some pressure to them from a genuinely anti-establishment perspective. And nobody else is going to do that. So we thought, it's going to have to be us.
Isn't this about Rupert Lowe's ego and his bitter Cold War with Nigel Farage?
If there's one thing that I've learned about Rupert, working closely with him over the last year or so, it is that he is not a man who is driven by self-interest. He donates his parliamentary salary to charity each month. He's a guy who's, he's had his glittering career. He's been married for, 40 years, got his kids, got his grandkids, and was living a very comfortable life, but has chosen to get involved in politics because he feels duty-bound to do something.
Well, of course, that is his great hope, isn't it? What is the plan for this party? What are its ambitions? Now, we just lost Charlie for a moment, and I'm fascinated by what you think about this, because Rupert Lowe is a respected figure on the right, but many are concerned that this intervention will split the vote on the right and gift Labour 5 years in power. I'm delighted to say that Charlie Downs is back with us. Charlie, what are the ambitions of this party? What can be achieved?
So on that point of splitting the vote, as I've said already, I mean, our view is that the real meaningful distinction in politics now is not right or left or any of these other kind of, I think, essentially meaningless distinctions, but it's establishment versus anti-establishment. Because right now, the establishment in this country is so dominant and has done so much damage to our country. And all of the offerings on the political landscape, like Labour, the Tories and Reform, being the primary ones, essentially represent the same thing. They represent the same version of this country that has existed for the last few decades, which has been, I think, brought about primarily by a kind of Blairite managerial ideology. And each of those parties represent a continuation of that version of Britain. And so on this point of splitting the vote, I would say splitting it between what? I mean, if it's splitting it between establishment and anti-establishment, I say that's welcome. I say that has to be done, because somebody has to hold these larger parties to account. Somebody has to tell these parties that you have to listen to the interests and the views of the British people and represent them. Otherwise, you're not going to win your seat.
So how many seats can Restore UK win?
Well, I mean, we had some private polls.
Now, it's a real shame we're having big trouble with the line at the moment, but I'm absolutely fascinated to hear what Charlie Downs thinks that Restore UK can actually achieve. Because I think, if you look at this text from Simon, it's quite telling. Simon in Essex. Simon, thank you very much for your message. He says, "Good morning, Mark. It seems all political journalists and commentators have memory hold why Lowe had to leave Reform UK. And that was because part of his speech for the Reform UK conference at the beginning of 2025 was not current party policy. He was told to remove it around illegal immigrant deportations, but he decided to ignore his boss at the time, Farage, and went ahead anyway. He's not a team player unless he is in charge. While we're sorting out Charlie, is he back? Charlie's back. Charlie, what would you say to the viewers and listeners that have messaged this show arguing that this is about arrogance and it's about a power battle between Farage, Habib and Lowe, and that the only winner is Keir Starmer?
Well, again, I just would not agree with that, because this party is going to serve an actual real purpose, which is, I think, primarily at this stage to apply pressure to reform, because reform are increasingly drifting to the centre.
Have you just said the true bit out loud, that Restore UK is there as a pressure group to push reform to the right?
I mean, that's absolutely one of our purposes, yes, because if you look at the mode that the Conservative
So you're not
Party
going to have any MPs or anything like that?
Oh, no, I suspect that we will, again, because we're already polling quite promisingly.
You got cut off during the polling. We didn't hear about the polling. How many seats can you win?
Well, before we launched, we ran some polling was done, which suggested that a party led by Rupert Lowe would poll at about 9-10%, and that was before we launched. So we're going to see how that increases.
That doesn't mean anything. What isn't 9%? 9%. You're not going to be decisive in any constituencies, are you? All you're going to do is take votes off reform so that Labour get another 5 years, at which point, Charlie, we're in the toilet. Thank you very much.
As I said, Mark, the Conservatives and
this
reform
isn't a game, Charlie.
They're both in a mode of consolidation.
This is not The Traitors. It's not a TV show. This is people's lives. They want change. And all you're doing is taking votes off Farage, who ain't perfect, but at least he's a Conservative.
Come on, Mark, let me speak here. So the Conservatives and Reform are both in a mode of consolidation, right? The Conservatives have fairly openly said that they're looking to win about 60 seats at the next general election in the south of England among essentially Lib Dem/Conservative voters who like the Tories' tax policies, for example. Reform equally think that they have the east of England, the north of England, essentially the white working class and beyond, that vote bound up. And so they're increasingly drifting towards the centre. And so neither of these parties, which should be the vehicles for the rescuing of this country and serving the interests of the British people, neither of these parties have any incentive to do either of those things. And so, as I say, in the short term, somebody has to be there with electoral teeth to hold them to account and to put pressure on them and to tell them that you have to listen to the views of the British people and you have to commit to doing things that may be painful, may be difficult, may be unpopular, but are necessary.
Now, Charlie, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of yours, a great admirer, long-standing, and I'm an admirer and a friend of Rupert Lowe. I'll be honest with you, I'd love him to be Prime Minister, but I'd also quite like to go and have dinner with Paris Hilton. It ain't gonna happen.
Well, we'll have to see about that, Mark. I mean, stranger things have happened. And I think the country is in such a febrile and volatile mood that I think the next few years could hold anything. I think that this could go crazy. I really do.
Is there a sense possibly that Restore UK could be a little bit like the DUP in the House of Commons, with a few MPs, 5 or 10 perhaps, who could then lean on a reform-led government to deliver a proper right-wing agenda?
Quite possibly. I have to pick you up on something there, Mark, though. It is Restore Britain. We do not say UK. UK is Blairite language. We're not interested in reforming the UK. We want to restore Britain. These are two distinct versions of this country, and Britain is the one that is increasingly disappearing, that people feel a sentimental attachment to, and which people are crying out for, I think, for restoration of. And so, yes, maybe it is possible that we'll have a handful of MPs in Parliament that will be able to apply pressure to, for example, a reform government. It's also possible that we will have hundreds of MPs. I mean, as I say, the future is so unclear in this country now. We live in such a volatile moment that I think anything is possible.
Could you see some sort of pre-election pact with Farage where you don't contest certain seats and they don't contest others?
Quite possibly. I mean, we're open to anything. I mean, saving the country is the priority here.
Because I mean, I think
if that leads to that, then so be it.
If Rupert Lowe were here, and we've got a bid in with Rupert, he may join us before 10. He will no doubt tell us that he wants to be Prime Minister. But is that honest, or is it about Restore Britain, as I say, being a positive voice on the right so that actually reform do what they say they're going to do?
Well, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think that Rupert can want to be Prime Minister and indeed be very well suited to the role of Prime Minister. And also recognising that we're a small party, significantly smaller in terms of manpower and money than, for example, Reform. But nevertheless, as I've said, I do think that anything's possible over the next few years. And for that matter, I do think I and many other people think that Rupert would make a fantastic Prime Minister, far better than any of the other politicians on the landscape right now, because he is a man of genuine integrity.
He most definitely is. He's an entrepreneur, a wealth creator, a farmer, so he knows about real toil. He's a former football club chairman in Southampton. He's now a very brave politician. He's a remarkable guy, Charlie, and he's got many fans out there. But what about this message from Alison in East Sussex? He says, "Good morning, Mark. I admire Rupert very much for all he's doing with the rape gang inquiry. I agree with his sentiments and thoughts. I also agree with Ben Habib and respect Advance UK. However, I'm both sad and scared. Sad that both men could end up achieving the opposite of what they desperately want. Nigel needs to reach out. Apologies on both sides. Egos to be put aside and join together to ensure the country can change. People complain about the Tory defectors joining, but I'm a Tory defector, as are most members. We're just not known. There may be ambition involved as well, and I accept that, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. We need ambitious people in the party, as many, including myself, feel strongly, but we're not prepared or able to put themselves forward as candidates. I hope with all my being that the RAR party, Reform, Advance, Restore, can be the party to go forward to save the country. What about that? An ideological political coalition made up of Reform, Advance and Restore, Charlie?
Well, again, I mean, if that is a viable route to saving the country, then I think we're absolutely open to it. But we have issued invitations to members of all of these sort of smaller political parties and Reform and Tories for that matter. And I think people basically need to recognise that, look, Rupert is the man for this. He's an MP, and Restore is the vehicle. It's the most viable vehicle. We have the profile, we have the strength of numbers, and if people are genuinely interested, sincerely interested in holding the establishment to account and actually changing the way this country is governed, Restore is the vehicle.
Given Nigel Farage's ego, do you think it's impossible that he could accommodate Rupert Lowe's project into his own reform political revolution?
Well, look, I mean, Rupert's position for a long time has been that Nigel Farage actually shouldn't be Prime Minister for the way that they treated him. Because if you imagine how a man who reports one of his MPs to the police for having the temerity to criticise him would behave as Prime Minister, I think you can understand why Rupert wouldn't want to work with him either. And I imagine Farage wouldn't want to work with us. I think that if that was a viable strategy to saving the country, again, I think we'd be very open to it. Whether it's going to happen, though, is another question. And as I say, do we really want Farage as Prime Minister? Are we really prepared to accept this same narrative that has been dominant in our politics for so long, that it's just the best of a bad bunch, that's the least worst option? I don't think that's good enough for the moment that we're living in.
Yeah, I mean, wait a minute. If we go through the detail, Charlie, Reform UK, if they win power, are going to unilaterally scrap net zero and restore those drilling licences in the North Sea. They're going to shrink the welfare state. They're going to end wokery in our public institutions. They're going to exit the ECHR, tear up the Human Rights Act, look again at the Refugee Convention. It's not exactly an establishment platform, that, is it?
Yeah, I just don't believe them, though, Mark. That's the issue, and a lot of other people...
So you think it looks good on the tin, but they won't do it in power?
Yeah, I see no indication outside of some very, fairly thin press conferences by Danny Kruger and others about reforming the civil service. I see no desire among Reform to seriously bring together a pool of talent that could govern this country and build a strategy to implement these changes that they want to implement. I mean, I just don't see it, and I just don't believe them.
But
I don't believe
Charlie is
interested in radical change.
Is Rupert not essentially the Corbyn of the right? In other words, ideologically pure, loved by the grassroots, but will never win power?
It's an interesting comparison. It is one I've heard before. I mean, there may be something to that, but I think the difference is that Corbyn's ideas were bonkers and unpopular among the British public, and Rupert's are normal, down-to-earth, genuine, pragmatic, and popular.
I've got a message here, maybe a little harsh. It's Sean in Bridlington, but I know you can take it, Charlie, because you've got a backbone. Sean says, I hope these ego vanity projects will be proud of themselves if it turns out after the next election that they've stopped Reform winning and Labour will stay in power. Nick says, Mark, I messaged earlier about my disappointment with Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, and now Charlie Downs has jumped on the bandwagon, clearly in an attempt to attribute himself to political notoriety. Narcissism rules, it would seem. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I've been working for Rupert for the better part of a year, so I haven't jumped anywhere. And, I first got in touch with him because I believed that he was literally the only politician on the British political landscape that was saying anything of note. And so I haven't, jumped across. There was another point there from that first text. I don't remember what it was.
Yes, it was about the Ego Vanity project that these characters, the likes of Lowe, Ben Habib, will stop Reform winning.
On this point, again, obviously it's come up a few times now, Mark,
Sure.
The idea of splitting the vote, allowing Labour back into power. I think what people need to understand is that Reform now, especially having welcomed in former failed Tory ministers, are essentially represent the continuation of the same political order that has governed this country for the last few decades. And so the idea that we would be splitting the vote in any meaningful way, I just don't think is legitimate, because it's like saying, we'd be splitting the vote for Labour, in favour of Labour, or in favour, these are all, I view the uni party as just being one entity, Reform, Labour, Conservatives. And actually all of the other smaller parties, Lib Dems, Greens, they all basically have the same conception of what this country is at its core. And by the way, what is revealed in the name of Reform UK, Reform, is that they view this political project, this version of the country, as being fundamentally legitimate. They just think that it's being governed badly. Whereas what I would say, and what Restore Britain would say, is that this political order is illegitimate. It was never actually voted for by the British public. And the British public, at every opportunity, 2016 being the prime example, has voted against it. And so anything that continues this does not have any democratic legitimacy. So we're saying, tear it down, restore Britain.
And so what are the realistic goals of Restore? Before I let you go, Charlie, lovely to have you on the programme. What are the realistic goals? Obviously, you're going to tell me that hopefully Rupert Lowe will become Prime Minister and you'll have a majority of seats in the House of Commons. But if that doesn't happen, what are the credible goals for this project? Because you're not a man that's going to waste the next 3 years of his life on a political fantasy, and neither is Rupert Lowe. So what is the real reason for this party being created?
So in the short term, one of our priorities is definitely continuing to do the good work that Rupert's been doing really since he was kicked out of Reform, which is advancing the discourse on the most crucial and difficult issues of our time. This is something he's done very well. And of course, over the last 2 weeks with his independent rape gang inquiry, he has continued to do that, at scale. And so on the most crucial of issues, whether it's, mass immigration, not just stopping mass immigration, but reversing mass immigration, both legal and illegal, what it means to be British identity, the idea that Britishness is not just an idea or a piece of paper or a passport or a bureaucratic administrative identity, but a people. On these issues, I think shifting the discourse and forcing other parties to adopt our framing will be a priority. And this is why Rupert is so uniquely positioned to do this, is he's not beholden to a party whip. He was an independent MP, is now the only MP for Restore Britain in the Commons and is the leader. And so he can really, I think, set the agenda. We're in a unique position where we can apply pressure, as I've said already, to the other parties, force them to adopt our positions, or threaten them with not winning their seats.
Well, I think what I'm reading between the lines there is that Restore Britain can leverage any political support they have to push Reform UK to the right and make sure that it is a proper Conservative project. And Charlie, what about the headline policies then? Because it's important to give you that platform now that we've tested your position and the very principle of having a new party. What are the policies?
So I've mentioned one already. One of the main ones, of course, the most pressing issue of our time is around immigration and demographics, because the white British population are set to become a minority in this country by the year 2070, and which is disastrous. I mean, it represents the disappearance of Britain, because Britain is not just an idea. Britain is not just British values. This is something that you hear the Conservatives and Labour and Reform and Greens and the Lib Dems all talking about. The idea that if you just believe in democracy and tolerance and the rule of law and all these sorts of things, then you're just as British as anybody else who's been here, whose family has been here for the last 1,000 years. So British identity, what it means to be British, this is a very important
But
one.
is it about skin colour? I mean, you couldn't say that Rishi Sunak's not a proud Brit.
Well, look, I mean, there's a spectrum of Britishness, isn't there? Because having a British passport is obviously different to your family having been here for 1,000 years. And this is the case for many people. Like, we are a very, very ancient people in this country. And so, yes, I mean, someone like Rishi Sunak is British in the sense that he has a British passport and was born here. But is he British in the sense that his family has been here for 1,000 years? No, he's not. That's just simply a statement of fact. And it's not to do with skin color, but it is to do with ancestry, right? And this is, this was a very normal perspective to have for the majority of history up until the last 5 minutes. And it's really only modern people that have kind of lost their minds and decided that Britishness doesn't exist, or it's just a kind of civic project and all the rest of it. So putting the boot into that, I think, is a priority. And then on immigration itself, we believe that mass immigration, legal and illegal, has been a disaster for this country. It's left us poorer, less socially cohesive, less safe in our own streets. And so we believe, look, this project has failed, and it never had a democratic mandate to begin with. And so the only legitimate thing to do is to look at the situation and not just stop mass immigration, but reverse it. Start to look at people who can't speak English, don't work, and don't really contribute to our society, are a net burden on the Treasury and all the rest of it, and say, look, you've got to go. You can't stay here. And again, this is a perfectly legitimate position, in my view. We then move on to the other cultural points, such as banning halal and kosher slaughter, which I think is essential because the British just don't do things that way. It's barbaric, and it's unpleasant to have that sort of thing going on in our country. And a huge number of people, we did some polling on this earlier, last year it was, a huge number of people support that because it's just not in the British character to treat animals in such a disgusting way. And there's various other policies that I could go into now, Mark, but I would encourage people to look on our website and explore them for themselves.
Yes, what is your website? How can people find out more, Charlie, about what you do?
Yeah, so it's restorebritain.org.uk, and you can also find us on social media at Restore Britain.
Listen, you're getting lots of love on the message board as well. There are some that are concerned about splitting the right. Others consider you, Charlie, and Rupert to be courageous patriots. So really good luck with the project, and I hope you'll join me regularly to tell us about its progress.
Certainly will, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. My thanks to Charlie Downs, campaign director of Restore Britain. Paul says, what a fantastic guy Charlie Downs is. More power to Rupert Lowe to save this country. There are others, though, not so keen. Stephen says, Mark, if I were Rupert Lowe, I'd wait until after the next election. This from Jason. Good morning, Mark. Reform Party does listen to the United Kingdom. They will make Britain great again. Labour has beaten up the United Kingdom. This from Alex in Belfast. Good morning, Mark. Your guest Charlie is letting himself down. Must be using Rachel Reeves's calculator to say a right-wing party can win a general election. In the UK, we have the right, centre-right, centre-left and left. 5 areas, 20%. A fully right-wing party can never win. Thank you for that. Keep those messages coming. It's 8:27. This is Talk Breakfast.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. 8:30, Rupert Lowe has launched a new political party. Does it gift Labour another 5 years in power? Here's a voice note from Sarah.
Good morning, it's Sarah from Croydon. Just regarding Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain, I think it's a dreadful shame, actually. I love Rupert Lowe, I do, very much, but I think there were strategic reasons, and this is pure speculation. I think there were strategic reasons why it wasn't working. I think Rupert Lowe went too hard, too fast, perhaps. And I think Nigel sees that he's got to grow his numbers, and as much as Rupert Lowe has a lot of support, I think on social media it's very much in a silo. He's not well liked, broadly speaking, and I'm not sure that he will appeal to the wider population, which is what Nigel is trying to do. So I think it's a terrible shame. I think people on the right need to unite. Many thanks.
Well, thank you for that, Sarah. Many would share that view. Debbie has messaged, good morning, Mark. Can Reform and Restore please work together? They will be formidable. Please put your differences aside just for this country. Well, I'm delighted to get reaction live in the studio from Ellie Hodges, who is a broadcaster and political commentator. Good morning, Ellie.
Good morning.
Well, we've got so many breaking news stories. Nigel Farage now has a fresh thorn in his side in the form of his nemesis, Rupert Lowe.
Yes.
These two men mostly think the same things. Why are they working at cross purposes?
This is why I am moving more towards being against Rupert Lowe's new party. I think I had a level of respect for him when he had his movement, and he was using that to hold Farage and Reform to account, and he was raising the issues he thought was important. The rape gang inquiry, for example, was a really good thing that he was doing. But I feel like setting up a party is just completely counterproductive. I don't think it needs to happen. I think that if anything, it's going to split the vote, which we definitely do not need. And I think that there is an argument that it's being done for personal reasons, not for the good of the country.
Because it's very clear that you want a truly conservative government, a right-wing government that's going to have strong border control, scrap net zero, common sense when it comes to energy supply, a country that lives within its means. That's broadly speaking what you're aiming for, and you've got enough confidence in Farage that he can deliver that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do, and I think that the question that needs to be asked here is, we are not close to a general election by any means, and I think a lot of people have got in the mindset that a general election is around the corner. It's not, so we can see how things pan out. But what will be very interesting is at the next election, if it means keeping out a Labour, Lib Dem, Green coalition, and we have to have all of the right-wing parties come together, would Rupert Lowe be willing to do that with Reform? Would Reform be willing to do that with Rupert Lowe? And then we also have Advance. There's so many right-wing parties now, and we just need to think about what's good for the country over everything.
Do you think this does boil down to egos and personalities?
I think a lot of it does, yeah.
And is Nigel as at fault as the others? Because is this not a crisis of Mr Farage's own making, given the fact that Rupert Lowe and him fell out so publicly? Shouldn't Rupert Lowe still be in Reform UK? And if that was the case, wouldn't they be unstoppable?
Well, I think what happened behind closed doors, none of us were actually there. So we don't know the full extent of what happened. I think that a lot of people that would still vote Reform now will think, as that voice note just said, it's a shame that Rupert Lowe left. But I think that what he's doing now...
Well, isn't it Nigel's fault that he left? I mean, haven't you let Harry Kane leave your metaphorical football team? You know, your star striker. Rupert Lowe was going viral every 10 seconds
I think the problem there was that there was two big egos and they were clashing. And I think that's the same with Ben Habib. I think that Nigel Farage is a big personality, and many would say he has a big ego. I think that's fine. But so does Rupert Lowe, so does Ben Habib. Having them all in the same party is not going to work.
Yes, and of course, one of you on the text board has pointed out that one of the reasons why Rupert Lowe left is because he was actually speaking out against official Reform UK party policy, and that's going to be chaos and that would be a big problem for their image publicly. The
yeah, and
media
they
would
want to
pick
be
up on
they
it.
want to be seen as united as well. If you have a new party coming along and Reform want to be seen as professional, there's lots of arguments to say that they're not, but having people within the party who are constantly going to go against party policy isn't really the best look.
Betty has said, good morning, Mark. There are only 3 million people who are right-wing voters in the UK. That's the group that always supported nonsense, and Cummings mobilised to tip Brexit vote. Reform should use this to show their centre right. Sorry, Betty's, it's a bit of a tricky message to read there. Do you think, how do you see this playing out? Because reading between the lines of what Charlie Downs said, who's a representative of Restore UK, I think he implied that really it's there as a pressure group to keep Reform on track.
That's what I saw it as when they had the movement, though. So they could do that by having it as a movement, not as a party.
But if they're
I don't think it really makes a difference.
Well, is it because they can leverage their voting support base? So is it about, if they can threaten Reform in certain constituencies, then that will push Reform to the right?
But I don't know if they can, though. And also the argument that Reform isn't right-wing enough, I get that. But when people say, oh, then they're not going far enough on this policy or that policy, I don't think they realise they have to win an election. They have to appeal to a wide amount of people. They can't have really fringe views that aren't going to get them elected.
Is there a danger that they will be an offshoot of the Uni Party, particularly given that figures like Nadine Dorries, Robert Jenrick and Nadeem Zahawi are now part of the movement?
I think many people will think that, yes. And that's why I think that Rupert Lowe's movement was a good thing. I thought that, as I said at the start, it held Reform accountable, it pushed them in certain ways, and I think that's a great thing. And I think that as much criticism of a party is great, and they have every right to set up a party. That's absolutely fine. I just don't think it looks the best from Rupert Lowe's perspective.
Running candidates in every constituency, doesn't that give Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain teeth? Doesn't it give Rupert Lowe leverage over Farage? Is that not the only way that Farage is going to actually take note?
Well, I think that we also need to talk about the difference between social media and real life. So I put out a tweet last night that was criticising Rupert Lowe's new party.
It went viral.
And there's like thousands and thousands of comments from Rupert Lowe supporters saying, oh, this is outrageous, Rupert Lowe's going to win the next election, I'm getting messages. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. Maybe I'm missing something here. And then I realised, actually, if I go and speak to my hairdresser, if I go and speak to the person at the nail shop, if I go to speak to the person down the end of my road, they don't actually know who Rupert Lowe is in the nicest way possible, and they do know who Nigel Farage is, and I think that's and also setting up a party isn't just really, really easy. You look how long it's took for Reform to get organised, and I don't think they are completely organised yet still. So it takes a long time to put in, as you said, branches, all of these different concepts that you have to set up a successful party. It's not easy at all.
Go, Ellie. I agree with every word, says Gary. H, on the other hand, Ellie, you just lost my respect. I thought you were more intelligent and patriotic. Farage is a crook. What about this? Could Nigel offer Rupert and Ben some kind of policy role within the party? And what about this from Bernie? I quite like this. Rupert Lowe sounds like a scorned lover.
The thing is, that point that was made about can Nigel give Ben and Rupert a role, I think it will be interesting when we come around to the next election. If these parties are still going and if they have gained some momentum, what will happen? Will there be a coalition? And I think that could be very likely.
Ellie Hodges is spot on, says Roger. Joanna says, Ellie Hodges, such an old head on young shoulders. There you go. Well, you're getting plenty of love and plenty of support. But listen, what do you all think? Rupert Lowe, do you welcome the arrival of this brand new political party, potentially supported by Elon Musk? Briefly, Ellie, before we get to the break and this crazy Valentine card story, if you're Nigel Farage this morning, you're waking up and you just had your first black coffee of the day. I understand that Nigel likes a black coffee. How do you handle this? What does Nigel do? Does he ignore it? Does he acknowledge the threat? Does he reach out? What does Nigel do?
I think ignore it, but I think it will be difficult to. I think the press will ask him questions and he'll have to respond to it. But I think the approach that they will take is just to pretend it's not happened and move on from it.
Is that wise?
I think so, if you're looking at it from their perspective, because if you start talking about it all the time, you're acknowledging it as a threat.
Fascinating stuff. The conversation is going to continue. Coming up, can't wait to ask Ellie about this. We've got a Green Party councillor who today is taking her grandchildren to a migrant camp to give them Valentine's cards designed and drawn by these little children to undocumented men. That's next. It's 8:40 Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 8:41 and Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. will be tackling this wild story. You won't believe this, folks. A Green Party councillor has provoked a huge backlash by announcing she's going to take her grandchildren to deliver Valentine's Day cards to young male asylum seekers at a army training camp today in Crowborough in East Sussex. 500 undocumented men are going to receive hand-delivered Valentine's cards from little boys and little girls. Let's get reaction for Ellie Hodges, political commentator and broadcaster. Ellie, where to start with this?
You want to laugh and then you realise how serious it is.
Is it April the 1st?
It's just crazy. It is. I mean, why as a grown woman would you want to see young children go and deliver Valentine's Day cards to people who are, one, not their age, and I think it would be weird in any circumstance, but also people who are, as you said, undocumented men. No one knows who they are.
In any environment, in any context, this would be deeply wrong for a 7-year-old little girl to draw a Valentine's card that will be hand-delivered by her to a male stranger.
It's hand-delivered as well. That's awful.
It's wild. And this is surely the brainwashing of the kids, isn't it? I mean, I feel sorry. I'm concerned about the safeguarding of those youngsters.
I think it definitely is a safeguarding issue because is that councillor using those children as well for political purposes? I think so.
Well, she's certainly signalling her virtue. Now, I'll be tackling this at length in Dolan's Dispatch, but the voice notes, Ellie, are coming in thick and fast. Here is Hev. Take it away.
Good morning, Mark. Yeah, I don't understand this stupid woman, and I'm sorry, it is stupid. Her idea is stupid, sending the kids with Valentine's cards. Did she send them in with Christmas cards? Very much doubt it. I just don't. Where is the mentality? I mean, for goodness, I haven't had a Valentine's card for many, 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 many years. You know, what is the matter with this stupid woman? I just hope the actual parents turn around and say, no, this is not allowed with my children, because I definitely would be saying that, and I think I would ban her from seeing them until she respected my authority on it as a parent. Stupid woman, where is her head at?
And Hev, what a scandal that you haven't received a Valentine's Day card in many years. I'm going to use this national radio and TV platform to wish you a very happy Valentine's Day and blow you, Hev, a gigantic kiss. And to all of our viewers and listeners of Talk Breakfast and of Talk, the home of common sense, here's another voice note from Boz.
Morning, Mark. Travelling Boz here. Wow. Kids going to this place and hand over Valentine's cards. Yeah, I don't think that's a really good idea. I think these sort of people, and I'd say majority of them, don't need incentive to, no, it's a bad idea. A bad idea. I mean, you know, let's hope they've got security guards around them when they hand over the cards, because, there could be repercussions from this. And if I was parents of any of these people, I wouldn't allow them to go. Nah, too risky. We know what these people are like. Well, most of them, the majority are. No, bad idea.
Well, thank you for that, Boz. And Ellie, something that I'll be pointing out in today's Dolan's Dispatch in 15 minutes' time is that this demonstrates how deranged the radical left are, how wrong they are about everything, how deluded and mad they are, how dangerous they are.
And I just think as well, this isn't just about the fact that these people are here illegally and that they are illegal migrants. This is just weird in every single level. If you were sending little kids to deliver cards to middle-aged men, it would be weird. And I'm sure the Green Party would say that as well.
In a pub or a betting shop.
Exactly. It's just ludicrous. It's so weird, and it's weird at every single level. This isn't even, I mean, it is to a degree, but it's about the fact, okay, they're also, you have no idea who they are, but it's just so weird.
And the truth is that there are many families in Crowborough in East Sussex who are really worried about the safety of their children, given the fact that upwards of 500 undocumented men will be accommodated at this army training camp, which, by the way, can't now be used by young cadets because it's gone off to the migrants. Welcome to, you know, the woke left. And the issue you've got then is that the safety of these kids is not going to be great at the best of times. There are many families now in Crowborough who will not let their son or daughter walk or take the bicycle to school. But what we are going to do is ship them into this migrant centre and give them expressions of love via a Valentine's card.
I would be really interested to see what her thought process was when she thought this was a good idea.
What do you think she is thinking?
I think some of it might have been that she thought it would go down well in left-wing circles.
Yeah, she's making herself look like a good person.
I still think that the majority of left-wing people who are ideologically left-wing would still disagree with this.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just a moral thing. It's not even really political.
Yeah, listen, wise words. I'm delighted to say that Ellie is going to stay with us. Ellie Hodges, broadcaster, political commentator. Next up, this is absolutely massive, 8:47 Talk Breakfast. Gary Lineker, breaking news this morning, if you're just joining us, has launched an extraordinary attack on the Manchester United co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We've got more on that next.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, what about this developing story? Gary Lineker has launched an extraordinary attack on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Manchester United co-owner, for saying Britain has been colonised by immigrants. Take a listen to Gary Lineker's response on The Rest is Football podcast.
Owners of football clubs, right? They're generally the billionaires. They often seek to divide, dividers. You know, I watched it and... I mean, the hypocrisy, really. The guy's a migrant himself, an economic migrant. He lives in Monaco. I mean, you can have a gripe all you like, but at least be here and be paying tax and contributing to our society. And I would say a lot of the immigrants, the migrants that do come in, contribute enormously, and facts show you that.
Listen, Lineker. There you go. A two-footed challenge on the Manchester United co-owner. Let's get reaction now from one of the most respected political commentators out there, always worth listening to, Myran Senthil. Nathan, good morning, Myran.
Good to be with you, Mark.
Really good to have you on the show. Now, you've gone viral in the last 24 hours because of your discussions with others on X about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the remarks he's made. But can I get your instant response to Gary Lineker's intervention here?
Well, I think there's a general rule in politics, which is whatever Gary Lineker says, you do the opposite, you think the opposite, and you'll probably be more successful and closer to the truth.
Yes, it works for Starmer as well, by the way.
It does, yeah. They're all on the same side of the fence. And what's infuriating for me is that these people, they champion a policy of mass immigration, which is the biggest experiment and the most drastic, radical experiment that's ever been performed on a country's civilization. And then when tensions start to rise, they then shout double down and cry racist and xenophobia and everything else. And so I hold these people, Gary Lineker, and these politicians, Keir Starmer, these people are responsible for any kind of racial tensions that arise because they simply deny how human nature works. Human nature works by familiarity, a sense of belonging. And the more you destroy that, the more likely it is you have a divided society where you will get racial tension. So it's astounding to me that the kind of self-righteousness, the delusion, the dementedness, anything to avoid being called racist and anything to be kind of... to stand on their moral high ground and preach to the rest of the flock about how everyone else is racist. Because the more you point at everybody else, the more righteous you become. And that's their kind of psychology. It isn't compassion, it's just raw arrogance.
It most definitely is. And we've got something in common, I think, Myran, because we are both the offspring of immigrants. My parents came to the UK from Ireland in the 1960s. But what you've pointed out on X is that this open borders policy and a refusal by the political elite to allow us to discuss the impact of immigration is actually bad news for immigrants that do give a lot to the country.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened is, so you have the question you had Charlie Downs on earlier, I think, talking about essentially what it is to be British. Now, the mass immigration policy, what it's done is it's radicalized the British public to such a degree that there are now real kind of legitimate questions about who is British, what does it mean to be British, the kind of surge in ethno-nationalism as opposed to a civic nationalism. All of these things that were simmering below the surface have now been forced up to the surface, and we now need to deal with things. And when you have, like, British-born individuals like Axel Rudder-Cabana and even Islamist terrorists who have been born in this country, who carry British passports, are now actively working against the country and committing the most heinous crimes possible, it now brings into question, who is British? Is a British passport even enough? And my point in that tweet was that years ago, decades ago, by and large, if you had a British passport and you were born here, you were considered British as a civic identity and belonging to this country. And now that's being called into question. And that is the consequences of mass immigration, is now raising all kinds of awkward conversations that we now need to have in the open.
Myran, when your family came to the UK, as mine did back in the day, there was an assumption that you would speak the language, an assumption that you would assimilate, an assumption that you would integrate, an assumption that you would become a British person. You don't have to lose your religion or your cultural background, but you would become British, and that you would put in more than you take out. And that's not the immigration that we have in 2026.
Exactly, and this speaks to the word colonisation, which is quite a provocative word. Now, I think there are two kinds of ways of looking at the word colonisation, which is colonisation by intent and colonisation by outcome. And I think that when you have Islamists, British-born, let's say, who are actively being very vocal about the fact they want to take over the country and introduce some kind of Sharia and infiltrate political institutions, that is colonisation by intent. So I do think that is going on to a certain degree. But the vast majority of immigrants are coming over in such large numbers that there is an integration. And if there is an integration with such biblical numbers of people coming in, then you're going to get colonisation by outcome. And that's effectively what's happening in the country. So I don't think Jim Ratcliffe is wrong to use that word, but it requires a bit of explanation. And you have, look at the country. You have whole parts of the country being carved up in a kind of organic apartheid. You've got Bradford, 75% Pakistani, Leicester, 75% Indian. You have parts of London, Luton, Birmingham. And
Tower Hamlets.
This is why people are up in arms, and this is why racial tensions are rising.
Most definitely, and in a sense, these places become such a monoculture that it is de facto colonisation, maybe not by design, but in practice, Myran. Stay with us, Myran. With me in the studio is Ellie Hodges. Ellie, what do you make of Gary Lineker intervening and attacking Sir Jim Ratcliffe for his remarks this week?
I think Gary Lineker is just frankly quite boring now. I mean, he just always comes out with these political points as if anyone cares. But I completely agree with the word colonisation. I wouldn't personally use it because I think that it carries a lot of baggage. But by definition, that word is completely correct. And I completely agree with the argument as well that people have become now more radicalised because of government policies and because they feel that people have failed them 100%. And now people are moving towards those more extreme opinions that they wouldn't have had before. So I do think that the word wasn't correct, but just because I wouldn't use it because of the controversy that comes around it. But I do think that what the actual argument of what he was saying was definitely right. And I just think Gary Lineker should just stick to his football and whatever it is he does and not get involved in politics all the time.
To what extent, Myran, do you think that Lineker's intervention here is typical of the establishment elite?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. It's delusional. The left have a tendency to always deny reality as it is, and they live in their ideological universe. And that's where that's what I mean by arrogance. When I said they're arrogant, is when you refuse to look at reality as it is and accept the kind of the difficulties and the challenges of what reality presents, and then you want to stick in your ideological universe. That is arrogance. That is the ego at play. But I want to bring up one anecdote that shows you the radicalisation that's going on. Do you remember Linford Christie back in 1992, the Barcelona Olympics, when he won the 100 metres? He was draped in the Union Jack. And I remember there was a person that I knew at the time. He said to me, during that time, he saw Linford Christie as one of us, one of the Brits, and he's white British. And now he said to me, he's been effectively so overwhelmed and so infuriated by the level of immigration that he now looks at, if that were to happen again, he would look at Linford Christie as an African man representing Britain, not one of us. And that's what's going on across the country as a result of these mad policies of immigration, that the ordinary Brit that used to be decent, and have good normal views and see, ethnic minorities as part of the British society, and now being radicalised into seeing them as the other. And that's where I'm concerned about, civil unrest in the future and all these tensions rising. And like I said, it's the likes of Gary Lineker who are responsible.
And the big headline briefly, Myran, is that this open borders experiment makes life really difficult for the fantastic immigrants that we do have in this country who give so much to Britain.
Yeah, and that's precisely why I'm so infuriated, is because, I'll be honest with you, I don't like to play the victim. I'm not interested in that kind of talk, but just for the sake of the conversation, when you go on X and so on, you do start to find that your place in Britain is being questioned. Are you really British? And I consider myself a proud patriot. I love the heritage, the history of this country. I'm even a monarchist. And I want to see this country. I love this country. This country's given me everything. And so when you have people who are born here, immigrants who have been born here, have grown up here and received so much and are loyal to this country, and you're having that loyalty being questioned, I understand why it's being questioned, but it's infuriating to see why it's being
Mehran, Senthil Nathan, thank you. Ellie Hodges, come back and see us soon.
Yes,
this is
definitely.
Talk Breakfast, Dolan's Dispatch Notes.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to. Because from
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side, this is Talk.
.903. A very good morning. This is Mark Dolan. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. And let me tell you that I've got tomorrow off. The brilliant Kevin O'Sullivan is looking after Sunday's show. But I'm back all of next week on Talk Breakfast in for the brilliant Jeremy Kyle. Do give it a listen. That is 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Lots to get through in the next hour, including breaking this morning. Gary Lineker, of course, the former presenter of Match of the Day, England football hero, has attacked the Manchester United co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, for saying that Britain's been colonised by immigrants. Will bring reaction. Woke Gary strikes again. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage's arch enemy, his fiercest critic Rupert Lowe, launches a new national party, but could a divided right hand Labour another 5 years in power? And how about this? A left-wing terror group, Palestine Action, win a landmark case in the High Court, exonerating their actions. So is this yet another example of two-tier Britain? Now, my number is 03444991000. Rupert Lowe launches a new political party. Is that good or bad news for the country? You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. So much to get through. Gary Lineker attacks Sir Jim Radcliffe. Has he got a point? Let's talk. And we'll kick off, as always, at this time on Talk Breakfast every Friday, Saturday and Sunday with Dolan's Dispatch. Let's be clear. The radical left of this country, who ought to be just as feared as the so-called far right with which Sir Keir Starmer is obsessed, the radical left are not just wrong about everything and deluded and mad. They are dangerous. For example, the Green Party councillor who's taking her small grandchildren to a migrant camp in order to deliver a Valentine's Day card to each and every undocumented male accommodated on that facility. Anne Cross announced at a rather heated public meeting that she plans to take her grandchildren to the controversial Crowborough training camp base today, which is accommodating, you heard me right, upwards of 500 undocumented males. Now, the East Sussex councillor has chosen to perform this stunt because she said that she'd like to encourage locals to be more open-minded about their new migrant neighbours and to hear the stories of those in the camp. What the hell is this? Their stories in the camp. Is this Jack a bloody Nori? She said there's nothing like getting to know people and hearing their stories in order to dispel fear. She said, my grandchildren and I have painted some wonderful Valentine's cards at the weekend, which we're going to be presenting to men in the Crowborough venue, this army training camp, as a welcome to the United Kingdom. She went on to urge all representatives of the local community to stand with those who want to share the love. Where to start? Well, first of all, good luck hearing the life stories of these small boat migrants. I think you'll find, my dear, that they've chucked any documents that identify them into the sea as they crossed the channel. So hearing their stories is going to be tricky because they've covered up their life stories in order to claim asylum in the country. I think you'll find, my dear, that these gentlemen to whom you profess such love will be somewhat tight-lipped about their backgrounds and motivations for coming to the UK. Is it too difficult for someone like Anne Cross, who I'm assuming on paper is an intelligent person, is it too hard for her to understand that these people are by definition criminals, having paid gangsters to make that perilous crossing, and they've broken the law to enter the country illegally? Why do they get a welcome when they've broken the law to be here? Has she not heard the litany of accounts of innocent Brits harmed or even murdered by small boat migrants, like one specimen who's just been jailed for the kidnapping and rape of a 12-year-old girl in a park in Nuneaton? And what about another monster who murdered a woman that actually worked at the Migrant hotel where he was being accommodated at taxpayers' expense? This guy, this monster, who the crazy councillor wants to give a Valentine cards to, he got 3 decades in jail for stabbing this poor woman 26 times in the face with a screwdriver, orphaning a young child. Now, of course, Channel migrants are not all a threat to the citizens of this country, but to deploy and weaponise children in a wild act of pathological suicide empathy, getting them to write Valentine's cards, which in any context, if written by a child for an adult stranger, well, all of it is completely inappropriate and wrong and tells you everything you need to know about how ideologically captured, misguided, dangerous and mad these woke progressives are. Any grandmother getting her grandkids to write love notes to fighting-age young men whose backgrounds we don't know is surely a case for social services. Those kids should be taken off her. They're not safe in her charge. I mean, as I tell you this, I just cannot believe that these words are coming out of my mouth. But then again, these are the same people who think we should bankrupt our economy and threaten our national security by destroying our energy supply in the pursuit of net zero. These are the same people who support Labour's brand new policy of letting children at primary school as young as the age of 4 change their gender in the classroom. Why should I be surprised at this Valentine's Day madness when these are the same people that demonise our great history, even though we arguably are the most benevolent nation in history, having delivered parliamentary democracy, the rule of law, free speech, the Industrial Revolution, a comprehensive justice system, William Shakespeare, the Beatles, and the ending of slavery? Why should I be surprised when these are the same people, the radical woke left, who see racism everywhere except when it's staring them in the mirror, with their enthusiasm for segregation and the judging of people based on their skin colour, not their character, in a sick inversion of Martin Luther King's dream of a colourblind society. Let me tell you, folks, that the anti-racists, with their white supremacy and their safe spaces for people of colour and black-only audiences at the theatre, are the real racists. The radical left aren't just mad, wrong, deluded and misguided. They are dangerous too. They are the actual enemy, because their crazy, deranged ideas must be battled, challenged and defeated. Otherwise, we don't have a Britain at all. The fight for common sense, for British values, for democracy is ongoing. These people don't take a day off. And let me tell you, it is mind-boggling to think that this woman, this Green Party councillor, is someone that has achieved power on a local level. On Valentine's Day, Cupid's arrow has been replaced by Stupid's arrow. It's enough to break your heart. 9:11, Talk Breakfast. Anne is in Sussex. Good morning, Anne.
Morning, Mark. How do I follow you after that? Before I begin, I hope people see how dangerous the Green Party are. There's talk that the Green Party are rising in the polls, but honestly, some of their ideas are really off the wall, and they do not really care about our country, as many of the far left don't at all. You've only got to look at what's happening in other countries with immigration, and we've had the most vast numbers of people who've come in illegally. We do not care what colour people are in this country at all. But what we do care about is actually we don't want to lose our identity. We don't want to lose what's made this a country that people wanted to move to. I have been more upset by the bad treatment of white people that nearly destroyed me. I felt safer with people of black skin, truthfully. It's nothing to do with colour or race, but it is to do with the fact that now we have people in this country and our own government who do not care about the British population. This week they brought in, last week, abortion into the date of birth, gender going into schools. They're destroying our British culture, and it's being destroyed from within as well as from without. And to give freedom to the Palestinian groups that march on our streets and hate
proven terrorists.
Terrorists.
But why? Because they've attacked national security venues, military outlets.
Yes. But you see, the government doesn't care. But I've said time and again, Mark, just read the 45 goals of communism and tick off what the government has achieved.
We're halfway through that list, aren't we?
We are. We really are. And people are sleepwalking into it. And while we're arguing about the colour of people's skins and some of the silly stuff, we're ignoring the dangerous stuff that's going on.
Most definitely we are. Anne, before we get to your other issue around immigration, can I ask you, I don't know if have you got children or grandchildren?
Oh, my dear. My life's work has been children, families. I've got 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and I now have 5 great-grandchildren. What happens to children is so important to me. Children who live in abusive situations. Yeah. children who have to deal with a lot of sexual stuff. Nobody's marching on our streets for all the victims of child abuse and the what's gone on in Rochdale and Oxford, do they? Nobody seems to care. So yes, children are important to me.
Well, Anne, I asked you that because I want you to put yourself in the position of your namesake, Anne Cross, who is this Green Party councillor, because she's taking her grandchildren on a day trip to Crowborough in East Sussex to hand over Valentine's cards to undocumented illegal immigrants. Can you possibly put your brain into hers and work out where she's coming from here?
Yes, and in a small way, I'll try. She thinks she's being a lovely, kind person. She thinks that anyone complaining about immigration, illegal immigrants, are really cruel. And these poor people have come from dreadful situations. Some of them will have. But, you know, the women and children who've been left behind, do we care about them? Do we care about the victims in those countries? Do we care what's gone on in Iran and Afghanistan and in Nigeria? Do we care about the Christians that have been killed and badly treated? So I think she's playing up to her own agenda to say what a lovely person she is, like Gary Lineker, but they don't really care, because they'd be on our streets. I'm too old to train myself to railings for what's going on, which annoys me. But there's some serious issues in this country and around the world that people aren't bothered about those.
They really are not. And do you worry for the direction of this country and the future of your great-grandchildren?
Yes, I do. I think that's why I'm militant in different ways. I always thought, when they say to me, what did you do? I can only say I've tried. I do worry. I'm not worried. You see, Mark, I was raised in care, and it was bad. And I hated poverty and neglect. And I hated poverty of knowledge as much as poverty of finance. Because you see our parents who do not know how to feed their children, do not know how to wash them and get them ready for school. I hate all that. And so I've always worked with all people from all kinds of situations because I care. If I only care about my own children and ring you and say, oh, my children behave well in school, my children, that annoys me. What about the rest of the children? And the other children matter too.
Anne, thank you for an articulate, courageous and important call. And I'm really glad that you're using this platform of talk to put it as a matter of record that you're deeply unhappy with the direction of this country, that you feel that we're shifting leftwards in a deeply sinister and planned manner. And I think you would argue, Anne, it hasn't just happened under Labour, but under the Tories as well. Keep that conversation going, Anne, and please call me again soon because you talk a lot of sense. And my goodness, you have some very lucky grandchildren and some very lucky great-grandchildren, though you don't sound old enough to be a grandmother. Derek's in Manchester. Derek, before we get to reform and Rupert Lowe, can I ask for your reaction to a Green Party councillor who's taking her grandkids to a migrant camp to give them Valentine's cards today?
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely, it's child abuse. Got it. How could you do that with your children, having heard what's gone on in the news just recently? How on earth could you do that to your children?
And does it demonstrate how mentally, ideologically captured these people are, that they think that's a good idea?
Well, I've known how mental they are for years, but yeah, it does. It demonstrates the most to a lot more people, obviously.
Derek, do you remember in the 80s? I'm old enough to remember the loony left.
Yeah.
They seem to be back.
Yeah, Derek Hatton and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, Derek, listen, you're a fellow Derek, but you're a Derek with a bit more sense than old Hatton. Big news today. Rupert Lowe has launched a brand new political party with the backing of the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Is it good or bad news for the country?
Well, I think it's good news, and I'll tell you why. Because, as I've previously said, on previous times I've been on here, I've said the same thing. I would have to vote reform at the next election because they're the best option out of what we've got. But with someone like Rupert Lowe, who, you've got to remember, that man is in Parliament. He's not taking his wages. He's giving his wages every month to charity, etc. He's just done more for the rape gang inquiry than any MP has done, since since they've tried to cover it up, basically.
Yes.
The man's a dynamo. He's in there now. He's also fighting against the barbaric halal slaughter. Now, the man is an absolute dynamo. Now, I will 100% get behind someone like that. And it's all right, people saying, well, will he split the vote? If anyone's got any sense, by the time the next election comes, which unfortunately we're stuck with this lot for the next few years,
yes.
But by the time the next election comes, I'm thinking that Rupert Lowe, if the press give him a free, a fair hearing, I believe that he will well and truly overtake Reform. In which case, Reform should do the decent thing then and come to some sort of a deal with him.
Do you think, Derek, do you think that Mr Farage can wind his neck in and collaborate in some way with Rupert Lowe? Because a lot of my viewers and listeners feel that this is a bit of an ego battle between the two men.
Well, it might be from Nigel Farage's point of view, but I do believe that Nigel Farage is just a state-sponsored safety valve, to be quite honest.
Oh, what people describe controlled opposition, where you think you're going to get change and you're not?
Absolutely. I mean, Nigel Farage, he first got involved in politics years ago when the BNP was active, and that was his only reason for doing it. He actually stated that his aim was to destroy the BNP. Well, he did it, fair play to him. But at the end of the day, if that was his reason for getting in politics, then it's not a good reason from my point of view. I want someone that's there to save this country and save it from the destruction it's heading towards.
Briefly, Derek, are you not in a position where you're letting the excellent be the enemy of the good? Would you not, if I gave you a choice now of Keir Starmer as Prime Minister in 3 years' time or Nigel Farage, I'm assuming you would take Farage.
Well, I'd have to, yeah, but only because we've not got a choice.
But isn't that the choice? Isn't that the choice? Go on.
Isn't it a sad state of affairs when we've got, the best of a bad job to choose from?
Derek, I can hear the emotion in your voice.
Well, I am emotional about it because I've seen my country absolutely destroyed and from people that have promised. Now, there's another thing. I hope that Rupert Lowe, which I think he probably will because he seems to be an honourable man, but I do hope that if he did get elected, he would bring in some sort of a system where we can hold these politicians to account for the bad choices they make, just like any other job can get held responsible for when they make a bad decision. I hope that he will bring some sort of a system in where we can do that, and some sort of a system whereby an election manifesto becomes a verbal contract. Because if I was to go out and price a job up for someone and give them a price on the strength of, yes, we'll do this, we'll fix that, then they can send me to court if I don't do it properly. What choice? We've got politicians for the last 20, 30 years coming in saying, Margaret Thatcher started, we'd rather being swamped by alien cultures, and then did nothing about it. She let her Home Secretary allow an amnesty for 15,000 people the day after they got into power. After saying that, we've had David Cameron. Oh yeah, we're going to get migration down to the tens of thousands, and it goes up to hundreds of thousands. Now surely that is a verbal contract by saying that to the public, by saying yes, we will do this. That is a verbal contract.
Well, Derek, I agree with you. Look at the Prime Minister. No mention in the manifesto of the tax rises, Derek. I think it was going to be about 8 billion in tax rises. Well, it's been 60 billion. We weren't warned about the digital ID that the Starmer tried to roll out. That wasn't in the manifesto. Neither was a bunch of policies that would increase our borrowing, spike inflation and kill economic growth and bring back the old enemy of unemployment. Derek, what a brilliant call. We could do an hour, but we've got such a packed show. Call me again soon. Lots of calls on the switchboard. So much to get through. Next up, a top journalist reacts to Gary Lineker's attack on Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's just turned nasty. Who gets the red card? This is Talk Breakfast.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. I've got tomorrow off. The brilliant Kevin O'Sullivan is in because I'm celebrating my auntie's birthday. She's 80, and we're gonna obviously give her a great celebration. But I'm off tomorrow. But I'm here all of next week looking after Talk Breakfast for Jeremy. The brilliant Jeremy Kyle is away, so I'll be doing that from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Monday. I do hope you'll join me. Phil in Basingstoke. Good morning, Mark. Gary Lineker is a prime example of someone who's headed the ball far too much. This from Nigel in Edinburgh. Just listen to your caller, Derek. Absolutely 100% agree with him on the manifesto being a contract that every government should be committed to. Bob says, I completely agree with Derek about Rupert Lowe and agree about reform being the best of the options available. Great programme. That's Bob and Carol. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Carol. Have a great Saturday. And big reaction to Dolan's dispatch and the Green Party councillor who's taken her grandkids to meet some illegal immigrants and give them Valentine's Day cards. This from an unnamed texter who says, good morning, Mark. How has this woman not been arrested? This is child abuse. Will talkTV be there to televise this when she shows up? I hope so. She needs deporting, in my opinion. That's Poppy from colonised Birmingham and fed up of all of it. Go Rupert, she says. I've just signed up to his new political party, Restore UK. Quickest 20 quid I've ever spent. Great show, Mark, and love your ties. Well, thank you so much for that. Listen, let's get straight to my studio guest now. One of my favourite journalists is Sophia Slay, Whitehall correspondent at The Sun, who are always #1 for political exclusives. Good morning, Sophia.
Good morning.
Breaking news this morning, and Gary Lineker has attacked Sir Jim Radcliffe, the Manchester United co-owner, for saying that Britain has been colonised by immigrants. Now, of course, it's a story that the paper has covered at length, and it actually crosses several boundaries into professional sport, the Premier League, and politics as well. What do you make of Lineker's intervention?
It's classic Lineker, isn't it, really? It's funny, we've kind of, you said it there, we've had the political debate, the political row, the kind of football row, now we've got the celebrity row, you know, it's now in the world of showbiz, I would say. I think it's kind of classic, it's very on brand for him. I think, do you know, at this point in the week, I'm kind of tired of this discussion. It's really easy for, you know, talking heads to just have a row about racism, when actually, do you know what, there's a nuance probably in between the two of these men.
Well, this is it, and it might have been intemperate language. It might be words that Sir Jim might not choose in the future, but the advantage of intemperate language is it sparks a conversation, doesn't it? Just when Suella Braverman referred to the boats crisis as an invasion.
Mm-hmm.
It was controversial, but it got people talking.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you've even seen politicians on the other side. You know, Keir Starmer has made controversial comments in big speeches about immigration and stuff like that have sparked a backlash. And I think, you know, it's a way of sort of, yeah, like you say, getting attention, drawing a line in the sand, making your point clear. You see it all the time in politics.
And isn't the problem that there are many commentators who will focus on the language of colonisation and therefore deliberately ignore the conversation that we need to have as a country about how many people come here and who they are?
I think this is always what happens in our sort of public debate is, you know, we really hone in on sort of one, you know, poorly worded phrase or whatever, and then you have this really vicious debate, you're racist, no, you're racist, no, you're racist, and we're just not talking about the issue. We're not talking about what really matters to Brits, to voters, to people on the street. We're having this niche side issue with celebrities, politicians, you know, footballers all rowing at each other, rather than talking about immigration, which is actually what Brits want us to talk about.
Indeed, because what we've seen is pearl clutching, haven't we, from the Prime Minister and the perennial Prime Minister in waiting, Andy Burnham, in Greater Manchester. And a lot of it's a posture and a lot of it's to signal what a lovely person you are. And I just wonder whether what Starmer could have done, which would have been courageous, is to say, I would not choose those words, but Sir Jim is entitled to his view, and actually we do need to address public concerns about the scale of immigration in this country. I don't think most of your readers at The Sun or most of my viewers and listeners are anti-immigration per se, Sophia. It's the sort of folk that come here, whether they'll contribute, learn the language, participate in our culture, and also the scale. A lot of it boils down to numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. And, you know, we've discussed this at length on your show sort of many times. These are kind of the issues that Brits want to talk about. And I think, you know, perhaps maybe a year ago there would have been a version of Keir Starmer that may have agreed with some of the points while also calling out the language. But I think he's in a different state politically now, so he's probably slightly more pandering to his soft left backbenchers nowadays.
Too right. Now, great news at 9:31, because it turns out that Palestine Action, rather than being terrorists, according to the High Court, they are in fact just a bunch of cosy campaigners, right? It's a harmless pressure group, Sophia. Nothing to see here.
I think the government, I think Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, would probably disagree with that assessment. She's quite cross that the ban, the sort of labelling as Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation has been overturned by the High Court. She's cross about that. She's appealing that. It's a bit of a blow for the government. This was, you know, them looking tough, fed up with all this sort of, you know, violence, bonkers protests that were sort of grinding parts of the country to a halt. And yeah, so this is definitely a blow for the government. We'll see if they win their appeal or not.
Yeah, I mean, she's an impressive politician, isn't she? And one of the more robust voices on those front benches. And she's not happy because she wants to send a clear message that this is not two-tier Britain.
The thing I think interesting about this sort of whole debate with Palestine Action is actually this designation has caused a bit of a problem. You've got hundreds and hundreds of people who've been charged with terror offences not being convicted, and I think there is a bit of a distinction between the people that are going up, smashing up buildings, and people who I think we can all agree with are, you know, beyond the pale. But then you've got sort of Granny in her Birkenstocks with a placard, and I think, do we really need to label Granny, you know, with the placard as a terrorist? I think there probably was a cleverer way of doing this, you know, sort of. Let's forget terror, but what about a totally new prescription sort of for extreme protest organisations? So let's sort of look at Just Stop Oil, you know, these kind of really militant protest groups that aren't necessarily terrorists, but can grind the country to a halt, that can damage infrastructure and things like that. I think maybe that might have been a safer and more sensible way around it, but time was of the essence, I think, when this legislation, when this change happened.
Yes, indeed. Robert says, good morning, Mark and Sophia. I think Sir Jim was correct with his word colonised. As for Lineker, I've got one word for him, colonoscopy. I think he needs one to clear the ... from his brain. Listen, your texts are always the best, aren't they? PJ in Suffolk, good morning, Mark. During his illustrious and lucrative career, Lineker famously never received a yellow card. It's high time he was given a straight red. Beautifully put. 9:34 Talk Breakfast. And Sophia Slay, Nigel Farage attacks the Tories. What's the story here?
Yes, this is quite fun. he's good with his language, isn't he, Nigel Farage? Good with the soundbite. He's promising that he's going to replace the old fuddy-duddy Tories and sort of make Reform the main right-wing party in Britain. So it's a great phrase, isn't it? Sort of fuddy-duddy Tories. I think that sort of plays to a stereotype of, you know, maybe 10 years ago what you'd imagine and sort of think of when you think of the Conservative Party. The irony is, I mean, and probably the reason why he's making these comments is because his party is stuffed full of ex-Conservatives. You know, Sarah, Potchin, Layla Cunningham, both former Conservative councillors. And then you look at his MPs, Lee Anderson, Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the MPs, yes. And then, of course, others in the background, Nadeem Sahawi.
Totally. I read somewhere this morning that basically Nigel's got more people in his party that was sort of in Liz Truss's cabinet than sort of Kemi does in her shadow cabinet kind of thing. So I think that says a lot, and he is being hit quite a lot with these sort of questions every time he's sort of in the media, and I think the public probably think it as well, aren't you just the Conservative Party 2.0? You know, a lot of people wanted Reform to be different to the Tories, and that's why they are drawn to Reform, because they believed and wanted them to be different to the Conservative Party that was obviously in power for a long time. So I think he's trying to sort of draw that distinction, but I think what would really help him sort of dismiss that sort of fuddy-duddy kind of perception is getting some Labour defections, actually.
Well, that would be very interesting. Do you see any of those on the horizon? So a few weeks ago, there was supposed to be this big sort of well-known Labour figure defecting to Reform. It never happened. I'm told it's sort of still on the cards, and you know, they're sort of always hyping this up, but we yet to see this big Labour figure defect. And, you know, when you've got sort of these sort of big Tory figures like Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, does that make it less likely for Labour figures to want to go and join them? Probably. And Sophia, I need your hot take on one of the big political stories of the day, and it's exploded on our message board and on our switchboard as well. Rupert Lowe launches a brand new party, Restore Britain. Does this gift Labour another 5 years in power? Is the right now splitting the vote?
I think time will tell. My gut instinct right here, right now, today is look at all the polls. Reform are just flying ahead. If there was an election tomorrow, Reform would do really well, if not win, right? And although Rupert Lowe has this, you know, quite a big following online, whether or not that translates to votes, I'm not sure. Reform has this, you know, Reform is becoming and that is now starting to look like a real sort of organised mainstream political party. You know, they are starting to operate a bit like, you know, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrat, the Labour Party operate in Parliament. You're seeing them professionalise, right? And does Rupert Lowe have that infrastructure behind him? Does he have, you know, is he too late out of the traps, really, is kind of my question, I think, with Rupert Lowe, I think.
Well, listen, Sophia, the Sun newspaper, #1 for politics exclusives, and it's a cracking paper today. Brilliant story there, Palestine Action, and Farage's remarks about fuddy-duddy Tories. See you very soon in the studio, and you're off now to get tomorrow's paper ready.
Yes.
So, and the news, it doesn't take a day off, does it?
No.
Not these days. Forget about, I don't know, the silly season. It's silly every day. 9:37, my thanks to Sophia Slay, who is the Whitehall correspondent at the Sun newspaper. Next up, more on woke Lineker attacks Sir Jim Radcliffe and Reform UK and Rupert Lowe. What do you think about this? Are they going to gift Labour another 5 years in power? 9:38, this is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:40, I'm delighted to say live in the studio is BBC local radio legend Alex Dyke. Alex, we've got so much to get through, including the death of funny comedies on telly. Can I get your quick response to the news that Rupert Lowe has launched a brand new political party? Is the only winner Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I wonder if he's done it out of, and I quite like Rupert Lowe, but I wonder if he's done it out of bitterness towards Keir Starmer, just to dilute his message. Because when you think about it...
Do you mean Nigel Farage?
I do mean Nigel Farage. I'm so sorry.
No, because that's why I can read your mind.
Well, exactly. A very late night last night. I do apologise.
By the way, there's some very sordid stuff in that mind.
There certainly is. I think he's done it out of bitterness towards Nigel Farage. But if you think about it, Reform are so strong. They're so far ahead, but this could, I suppose at worst, kind of muddy the waters for them. That's the worst damage I could foresee. It's just annoying, isn't it? If you're at Reform's offices this morning, you're just going to be hacked off by this.
Well, yes, it's what they would call in the military circles friendly fire, because what you're doing is you've got an electoral threat from your own side.
Yeah,
the right politically.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and I just think it's bitterness, personally, but I could be wrong.
Rob is in Poole. He said, "Good morning, Mark. I keep hearing negative comments about Reform being full of conservatives. Reform is a relatively new party, so it stands to reason that all their members have voted for other parties in the past. And as the right is more aligned to Reform than the left, of course there are going to be plenty of Tories in there." And John in Liverpool, "Good morning, Mark. How dare Nigel use words like fuddy-duddy when describing the Tories? It's offensive and ageist." And listen, I love it. What about Lee in Rugby? "Good morning, Mark. My message to the virtue signalling holier-than-thou Lineker has something to do with fornication and travel. No one cares what he thinks. He's out of touch with his millionaire lifestyle. He needs to go back to selling crisps. Sir Jim Radcliffe was right and the country agrees." That is Lee in Rugby. There you go. Well, look, folks, I'll get to more of your feedback shortly. In fact, after the break, Alex and I are going to talk about Gary Lineker, who has attacked Sir Jim Radcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester United. And I'm fascinated to hear what Alex Dyke thinks about this. But Alex, can we talk about something that's also very important, which is the Great British sitcom? I'm thinking Only Fools and Horses, Steptoe and Son, Dad's Army, The Office. The problem is we're not going to have any new ones like that going forward, are we?
We're not, Mark. There's been a big thing in the Sun newspaper today, big double-page spread on comedy. I think the Radio Times are trying to create the greatest comedy since 2010, because of course the BBC are obsessed with not going back into the past too much, where of course all of the comedy gold is buried. So the Sun have done a piece today on Dow Boy and Basil Fawlty and David Brent from The Office, which isn't that long ago. Little Britain's worth a mention, but there's no side-splitting comedy out there now, is there? And in fact, on this double page spread, there's lots of photographs and little paragraphs of the big comedies that we've had in Britain since 2010. And I wrote a couple down for you. The Detectorists, I thought that was good. It's a bit of a slow burner and what I would call intelligent comedy. And Peter Kay's Car Share. But apart from that, I couldn't really see anything that stood out. Ricky Gervais's Afterlife is very clever. It's very well written, but it's dark. But there's not a lot of fun there.
I agree with you, and I've not heard of half of them. Now, that could be me, Alex. I don't have my finger on the pulse like you do, but I just wonder whether I'm, not untypical. I've never heard of Big Boys. I've never heard of...
I bet you have.
Well, let me tell you about my private life later. I've never heard of Chewing Gum. I've never heard of Dreaming Whilst Black. I've never heard of Mum, Ghosts. I mean, Catastrophe, Such Brave Girls.
I know. I've seen a promo for Ghosts on the BBC.
Translator.
I've seen a promo for Ghosts, a trailer for Ghosts on the BBC.
Did it have you chuckling?
No, it didn't. I mean, it's just so bad. The other one that's probably worth mentioning is W1A, which is the BBC doing what they used to do very well, taking the mickey out of themselves, right? But once you've been inside the BBC, I find that a bit depressing, because you're thinking you're actually writing comedy about how inept you are. It's like watching a fly-on-the-wall documentary. I'm sorry, BBC, but it's true. But I'm going to say something nice about the BBC when we talk about YouTube.
Well, I'm glad to do that, because we'll come to YouTube in just a second. And is it because of political correctness? Because, I mean, you know, your broadcasting work spans decades, and when you were on BBC Radio, you became a legend of the medium because you were honest, freewheeling, a bit naughty. And you were not woke, were you? I mean, you're not an offensive man, but no, you're not a frothing right-winger sort of thing. I was mischievous because I've come from commercial radio, and we knew how to get the ratings, and we knew how to get the telephone lines cooking. So you had to be mischievous. So you would say something like, have I got time to give you a quick example? Oh, all day long. All right, so there was a story in the papers that I believe it was British Airways, but I can't remember because it was a long time ago, that if you were a pilot over 55, you were not allowed to fly long haul anymore because you were too old. Right. So I went on the air. Harsh. So you took a story like that, and then you would say on air, well, obviously men over 55 or women over 55 shouldn't be driving cars. They are carrying life too. So what we need to do is ban 55-year-old drivers. Of course, everybody went ballistic with that because nobody wants to give their driving license up. So that would make the phone lines busy. That would get an audience. When I first went to the BBC, they wanted that, but within 18 months, they started to go woke. And suddenly you became censored. Didn't you make a hilarious and perfectly innocent remark about breastfeeding, and that led to your near cancellation as well? It certainly did. Yeah, it certainly did. And I've been married twice. I have 3 children. All 3 children were breastfed. I have no problem. I think it's one of the most wonderful things in the world. Of course it is. But I made a little joke about it. We did a little skit. A very funny joke. A little skit on it, and the BBC just went. Well, and of course, they went into meltdown. At this point, there's no sense of humour. They couldn't analyse or understand that it was a joke, and they freaked out and just thought you were being offensive. And that is and that's why we don't have any Olsen. Exactly. So they didn't want entertainment coming from BBC local radio. They wanted it all to be factual by them, but they never told anyone they'd moved the goalpost. That's the crazy thing about being in the BBC. If you broadcast on the BBC, you're the last to know this kind of stuff. And mark my words, Mark, these sitcoms that none of us have ever heard of have been written to get past people at the BBC to get them on air. So they take all the fun out of them. It's like Top Gear. They did exactly the same with Top Gear. Of course they did. There's an amazing story. Andy Willman, who was the executive producer of Top Gear, Mr. Willman, as he's referred to by Clarkson, they were having great success with Top Gear originally at the Beeb with Clarkson, Hammond and May. And the reason why, a lot like your radio show, it was fun, it was entertaining, it was a little politically incorrect. Millions of viewers, right? People voting with their remote controls. And so what was interesting, they had a meeting with the management of the BBC, and they were very excited because the management of the BBC said that there are lots of people of colour, British people of colour, watching Top Gear, and they love it. So therefore we thought, why don't we get rid of one of the 3 white men and put somebody of colour in there? At which point Andy Willman said, well, if people of colour are choosing to watch us 3, then maybe that's the winning formula. I don't know. I'm no expert. But that is the mentality, the madness of it. The BBC have got a little bit of a rival now, haven't they, in the form of YouTube. What's the story? Yes. So YouTube is now 20 years old today. Did you know initially, and I only found this out yesterday when I was doing some research, it was going to start as a dating channel. Is that right? Yeah, it was going to start, and that never really worked. Anyway, one of the founders, a guy called Jord Karim, put the very first video up onto YouTube. Would you like to see it? I would dearly love to see it. All right, it's 19 seconds long. This is the first ever video ever on YouTube.
All right, so here we are in front of the elephants. And the cool thing about these guys is that they have really long fronts, and that's cool. And that's pretty much all there is to say.
There you go. Not the most auspicious start, but that guy was part of something very special.
He certainly was. So 3.5 million videos a day are uploaded to YouTube. That's 2,500 a minute, 30 to 40 a second. But of course now YouTube is huge. We all use it.
And by the way, several thousand people are currently watching it as we speak.
Absolutely. And you have your own YouTube channel. And I love watching all your stuff about the Royals, by the way.
That's so nice of you.
But the interesting thing, Mark, is that everybody laughed at the beginning, including all of the broadcasters. They were all way behind. But if we didn't have YouTube, we wouldn't have had Netflix and Amazon Prime. Disney Plus wouldn't be Disney Plus. Now, of course, all of the broadcasters are embracing it. And the ones who got on board first after missing the train at the first station were the BBC with the BBC iPlayer. They were well ahead of ITV with ITV.
Fair play to the Beeb for that.
And Channel 4. So credit where credit's due. I've got another quick clip. Have I got?
Oh, I thought you were going to swear there for a minute.
Nearly
were
had
you
to
telling
bleep
about
that
your? Yeah, I mean it's Valentine's Day, family show. Alex, we've all had a drink. Brilliant. You've got another clip for me.
So this is typical. A quick clip.
I knew he'd get me in trouble.
This is typical.
Old Alex Dyke, big Alex Dyke's going to get me cancelled, Spencer.
Of early YouTube. This is called Charlie Bit My Finger Again. Have a look at this.
Go for it.
Charlie bit me. Ah! Ah! Oh! Ouch! Ouch! Ouch, Charlie!
That's brilliant. I mean, that's very a story of brotherly love.
I mean, that's had like 3 billion views, really, 3 billion views, because we can all relate to that in a family.
And what's lovely about YouTube is it's free. And I have a lot of viewers and listeners that are finding life very difficult. I took a call from Mary last week, and she's paid nearly £8 for a tub of butter. Right? The cost of living is a struggle. And you've got your Netflix, fine. That's a tenner a month. Amazon Prime the same, Apple TV, all those platforms. YouTube, as long as you don't mind an occasional advert, costs you out.
And the real important thing, Mark, is anybody can get on there. Anyone can have a worldwide audience. And it's got rid of, you're going to love this, it's got rid of the traditional gatekeeper.
Well, this is exactly it. There are no middle managers swanning around in a £2,000 Armani suit deciding whether Alex Dyke is funny or not. I can tell you I'm not in an Armani suit, and you are. Listen, it's 9:52, Talk Breakfast. Your calls next. Breaking news, Gary Lineker attacks Sir Jim Radcliffe. We've got the inside story. Don't go anywhere.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
A Green Party councillor is taking Valentine's cards to illegal immigrants in Crowborough, East Sussex, drawn and designed. Alex Dyke's lost it. Drawn and designed by her grandchildren. This from Jackie in Edinburgh. Good morning, Mark. The ridiculous Green councillor is taking cards named after a Christian saint to a bunch of disaffected Muslim men. You couldn't make it up. What a plonker. It is a pretty wild story, isn't it? Gary Lineker has attacked Sir Jim Ratcliffe for saying Britain's been colonised by immigrants. Here's a voice note from Dave.
Morning, Mark. I couldn't give a rat's behind what Lineker thinks. When I want an opinion from somebody who chases balls, I'll ask my dog, Dave in Aberdeen.
Dave, you have put your finger on the button. Folks, can I just say thank you so much for your calls, your voice notes, your texts and your company this morning. I'm off tomorrow and lovely Kevin O'Sullivan's looking after the show. But I'm back on Monday. I'm in fact here all of next week in for Jeremy Kyle on Breakfast, 6 till 10. I do hope you'll join me then on Monday at 6 and do join Kevin tomorrow. With me in the studio, Alex Dyke, broadcasting legend. And you had to chuckle there, didn't you? Because if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah. You couldn't make it up,
children
could
doing
you?
Valentine's cards for illegal immigrant men in Crowborough. What's the story there?
And who knows who these immigrants are? We don't. I'm sure in a lot of cases we don't know who they are. They didn't arrive with a phone or a passport. Some innocent child could be giving a complete monster a Valentine card. I mean, it is crazy. You would think that a responsible person would say, no. Well, those people are staying in that hotel. They're being fed. They're being looked after until something could be sorted. But let's not just approach them with gifts and Valentine's cards. It's mental.
It is. The messaging is out of this world and we are being laughed at internationally. Can you wait till Donald Trump gets hold of that story? Just think of the posts on Truth Social. What about this row? Gary Lineker, formerly of the BBC Parish, attacks Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Manchester United co-owner, for saying Britain's been colonised by immigrants. What did you make of that whole story?
Well, it's like the story we talked about earlier. I think there's a little bit of bitterness in this. Maybe it was something to do with football in the past. I don't know. I just think that multi-millionaire Gary Lineker should just keep his trap shut, particularly when he's going against the mood of the country. And he's having a go at Jim because Jim's chosen to live in Monaco, right? So he's saying, well, if you want to have an opinion, that's all right, but be here to pay your taxes. I'm sure that man has paid plenty in taxes and probably a lot more than Gary Lineker, who probably has to pay a lot in taxes as well. They are both really entitled to their opinion, as you are and as I am. And there I am saying, so I'm kind of criticising myself now by saying Gary should keep his trap shut, but he just comes across as such an idiot.
Well, definitely, he's insulated from the consequences of his luxury beliefs. I think that's the point.
Yeah, he's not living in the real world.
No, and I was on holiday in Cornwall about 5 years ago with my missus and my two sons, and the lady was serving us in the restaurant. I'd had a few pints of cider. You're welcome. It was a nice evening. And I said, you're so lucky living here. And she said, not anymore. I've got a Migrant hotel up the road and I have to walk my daughter home every night. And that was 5 years ago. And there were a couple of people with us raised an eyebrow thinking, here we go, she's the far right. I don't think so. No. She's just saying, she's believing the evidence of her eyes and ears, which is I'm not safe because there's a bunch of men down the road from an alien culture and we don't have their background because they chucked